Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Devontae stays with him. Cale McCarr takes over off the dasher and down ice. Logan O'Connor, here he comes short-handed. OC, he scores! OC's having a night!
High slot in the Tampa zone. He'll leave it. Dylan Cousins trying to create a lane with a shot. Scores! The workhorse from Whitehorse in overtime. And the Sabres win it 3-2 with 3:14 to go in the extra period.
2-1. Swing and a high drive. Right center field. On its way. That ball is gone. Schwarber has gone deep again. A bomb to right center field. And the Phillies extend their lead. It is 3-0.
That's awesome. I mean, I think we handle bye weeks way different than anywhere I've ever been. But I'm away from Coach Rule. We compete in everything we talk about. Just iron sharpening iron. Our guys went out every single day that we practice. And sometimes they can be a lull in the off week, but this is one of the best off weeks I've ever been a part of as far as the detail, the practice, the competition, guys being locked into it. It was really neat. It was a good week.
Good morning and welcome in to Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla, Andrew Rogers.
Howdy.
Here with me as well, Shane Schillerberg producing. We are live on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, as well as Twitter, YouTube, all of the places on the internet where you can find things. I mean, that's pretty much right.
Not all the places.
All the places on the internet where you can find G-rated things.
There you go.
You can find us. That's Twitter, YouTube, podcast.
Well, I don't know. I haven't been on the dark web much lately, so
I don't think there's a lot of G-rated stuff on the dark web.
I don't know if Ravi and Raj are on the dark web or not.
It's funny you say that. My brother's name is actually Raj, but it's R-A-J.
Oh, really?
So when you say Ravi and Raj, I was like, Raj, where you at, bro?
Where are you, bro? Yeah, I made that my name today. I
There
feel
you
like
go.
I'm changing my StreamYard name every single day.
Well, yeah, earlier in the week, you were the bad beats. You were your bad beats on the
Yes,
thing
I
there.
was. Thank you, Chris Kreider.
It happens to the best of us. We've got
Or just me.
I was mostly because you're a little bit degenerate, like a little bit. No, I'm in a football pick'em with a couple friends, and we'll buy each other like a bottle of booze or something at the end of the season. So it's very low stakes, right? But I started off terrible this year
In the
Just
pick'ems?
awful, and I'm trying to dig my way out of the hole. But man, I'm not quite on the same degenerate train as you, but I'm watching these games and watching these lines, and I'm like, Kansas, why you have to give up that late touchdown? And we're struggling out here.
Yeah, my pick'ems, I feel like I've told you this already once before, but if not, I'll just quickly remind you. I've gotten second place in my NFL pick'ems 3 times now in 6 weeks.
Yeah, that's rough.
That is ridiculous. And I've also scored the lowest amount of points in total 1 week of 49, which is ridiculously low.
Not good.
So I am on the struggle bus. I'm on the struggle bus when it comes to my NFL pick'ems, but it's 7:03, and I think the Phillies just homered again.
I think they may have. Yeah, that was a bit redonkulous.
Their offense right now is redonkulous.
It really is. I mean, and I like to see it because I'm kind of bandwagging a Rangers-Phillies World Series right now because nobody wants to see the Astros. Nobody will see that at all. I'd be okay if the Diamondbacks made it, but
they just don't look good enough. Their offense, it looks abysmal right now.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. Also, it gives me an incredible amount of joy to see them struggle because they're just world-class a-holes. So I'm really pleased to see them struggle. I don't have any dislike for the Diamondbacks. It's just like I said earlier in the week, I have an admiration for the Phillies fans that I have.
A lot of people do.
Yeah, they get a hard time because they can be a little harsh, but I respect the passion, and so I'm kind of on that Phillies bandwagon a little bit. Now I don't know who I'm going to root for if they play each other in the World Series. It's going to be tough for me. I'll probably go Rangers because of the Creed connection and my Nathan Eovaldi love from his time with the Red Sox, but it's going to be tough for me.
I will probably cheer for the Rangers because they haven't won. That would
fair.
be the reason
That's
why
a good one
I
too.
cheered for them.
However, the Phillies won what, 08?
Yes.
Yeah.
They won with Roy Halladay.
Yeah, and like Cole
Hamels was pitching. Yeah. But as somebody that has or is a part of like a fan base that like loves themselves.
Sure.
Right.
St. Louis fans, sure.
That's kind of what Philadelphia is too.
Oh yeah, they're very proud of their own fandom,
and
with good reason. To be fair,
yeah,
in both cases.
Yeah,
I mean,
in both cases for sure. But I don't know if I can like morally root for a fan base that's just like mine, right? Because they mirror each other too much. It's like that's like rooting for your arch rival. So if I'm in Nebraska, I'm rooting for Iowa every week that they're not playing Nebraska. Ooh. Like I can't do that.
Yeah, I think it's a little different than playing Iowa because like tell me if I'm wrong here. Do the Phillies and Cardinals have any sort of like natural rival? Like, there's not a lot of history there, right?
No, I mean we've played each other in postseason.
Yeah. But nothing
before.
like particularly contentious.
But when it comes to like one fan base against another, and there haven't been like, reports out there like, oh my gosh, Cardinal fans hate Phillies fans and vice versa. But when we're talking about like who's the best fan base, like if you get into that conversation,
they get put together
those two
so
teams.
It's more of a fan base rivalry than an actual team.
Yeah, so I don't want to root for the team then.
That's fair. Although I will say, I think part of the reason I am drawn to the Phillies is because I feel like Nebraska fans are pretty proud of themselves also. And you got like the sellout streak and like the through these gates walk the greatest fans in the world, that whole thing. And so obviously Nebraska fans take a lot of pride in their fandom. And I think I see that a lot in Philadelphia. And I kind of just appreciate it's a different sport, right? So it's easier.
And one of my best friends back home is a huge Phillies fan.
Yeah.
Like massive Phillies fan. So, anytime I can root against him, I'm in.
It's kind of weird. Like when my team's not in it, I've started rooting for my friends' teams. Like, especially if I don't have
can't do that.
If I don't have a conflict at all,
do it.
I kind of am like,
he's a big Avalanche fan too. We'll never root for the Avs ever in a million years.
If I don't have a direct conflict with my team, I'm like,
oh man, I mean, there's
be happy.
Not me.
Not there yet.
Not me.
Not that level for you. Like,
no, because he's not going to root for the Blues.
Right.
Right. And he's not going to root for the Cardinals.
Well,
so I'm not going to root for his teams.
That's fair.
His favorite color is maroon.
Pat Maroon?
Yeah.
Yes.
Maroon 5?
Yes.
Adam Levine? That was
I don't know if there's any.
I will say I freaking love those powder blue uniforms the Phillies wear too.
The Cardinals wear those too, Ravi. You can say that too.
Yeah, but they're not in it right now.
Yeah, there it is. See? That's why I don't like you. That's why I root against the Warriors.
Also, how dare you? Also, I mean, so the Red Sox and Cardinals do have history.
Yes.
So like it's,
Red
Sox and
what?
Phillies don't really have history.
I'd probably find myself rooting for the Red Sox over the Phillies. And it's because they're in the AL.
I do kind of like Kyle Schwarber. He had a quick cup of coffee with the Red Sox, so that makes me feel good. I just like rooting
very quick.
Listen, it was fun though.
I don't think he finished his cup.
No, so I think it was when he was coming off the ACL with the Cubs.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up signing with the Red Sox in the offseason. He only played like the second half of the year, but I really enjoyed his time with the Red Sox. I had a good time. It was I think that was 2021 when he had when they had kind of that postseason run. The last time they had a postseason run. Stupid management and trading Mookie Betts.
Oh, who's that?
I don't want to talk about it.
High fly ball,
I don't want to talk about it.
That one back, and that one is gone.
I do like Kyle Schwarber though, and I miss JD Martinez too.
So your ideal World Series then is Phillies Rangers.
Yeah, I think so, and I think I would end up rooting for the Rangers. As I mentioned, Nathan Eovaldi, Creed, but also I do them having not won it is I like breaking droughts.
Sure,
I would really love to see the Guardians win it at some point because at this point they're pushing. They're pushing
every opportunity to shut down the Cubs.
I know. Well, not just that, but like you want to go back to 97 against the Marlins. That series slipped through their fingers in Game 7. Obviously 2016 with the Cubs. I think there's another one in there too. In 2007, they had a 3-1 lead in the ALCS against the Red Sox, and they blew that.
Yes, they did.
They've had good teams over the years and haven't been able to get over the hump. So 95 against the Braves, that was a really good team with like Albert Bell and Manny Ramirez, like a young Manny Ramirez on that team. I think Jim Thome was on that team. Like that 95, it was Indians at the time. That 95 Cleveland team was stacked. Like they were really good.
When was Grady Sizemore?
So that's
a
late
Cleveland ball player.
2000s, I want to say. So I want to say it's like 07.
That dude was like one of my favorites to
he
play
was
with in video games.
So good, but the injuries
he had
killed him.
such a short-lived career.
It was brutal because he was so good.
And I just have an affinity for center fielders.
Yeah. And he had, when he was,
where my like love affair comes from with Grady Sizemore.
When he was
That dude's a baller.
Yeah. So he was a rookie in 04, but his peak years were 07 or 06 through 08. So like mid to late 2000s.
Has Angel Hernandez umped any games yet? Because he wasn't in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, because I remember reading an article saying that he wasn't going to taint it. But has he been?
I don't think so.
Has he been umping any games?
I don't think
so.
No,
never.
The only reason I ask that is when
I haven't heard any controversy, so I assume he hasn't.
Right. I was coaching when I'm going to go back. Some people know, some people may not. I was coaching fall ball here in town, and I was out.
Well, and a lot of out of town, but
yeah, and a lot out of, well, I was coaching out of town. I was practice.
They
I was
were
all
based
in town, right?
Yeah.
So we were in Kansas City one weekend, and I can't remember who I was talking to. It was one of the umps. One of the umps that was at the game, and he was talking about how Bryce Harper's this unbearable baseball player. Just can't stand them, horrible to umpires. I'm like, yeah, that may be, but some of them have it coming. And he like started arguing with me on, like, this is during play. When I say arguing, like back and forth about how umps are always right.
Yeah.
I'm like, whenever somebody says they're always right, that's when I know that
you're full of it.
Yeah.
Because nobody's always right.
You live in La La Land if you think you're always right.
Not the movie.
Unless my fiance says she's right, and then I'm like, yeah, you're right.
You nailed it. Sorry. You got it, babe.
But so he goes, no, the ball player is always wrong. I'm like, okay. Well, tell me how Angel Hernandez has become the most hated umpire in baseball, and also one of the worst umpires in baseball over the course of his career. And he's like, actually, Angel Hernandez is top 5 in accuracy.
No,
top 5 in accuracy.
He's actually not. There's real numbers on that.
He goes, yeah, look it up. I go, where? On umpire scorecard. So I look up umpire scorecard, and I have it pulled up in front of me. And it says his accuracy is 92% on here.
Mm-hmm.
No way that's possible.
Okay.
No way, right? His expected accuracy is 94%. And I'm trying to understand this because this is all the website gives me. It's 4 of these little line charts.
Yeah.
That's it, right? And then it shows like his statistics from when he started to where he is today. And so I'm like, So I'm like, I'll do a little more research. I'm not going to trust one source. So I go to Wikipedia, right? Because everyone knows Wikipedia is lock stock, right?
Absolutely.
I'm going to read you this one little paragraph.
Okay.
During the 2016, 2017, and 2018 seasons, Hernandez's calls at first base were overturned in 14 out of 18 video reviews.
Cool.
For a 78% overturn rate.
Yeah.
Exceeding the 60% overturn rate for all first base calls by all umpires during that time period. You're going to sit here and tell me that dude's a good umpire?
Yeah, no.
You know what caused the downfall of Angel Hernandez?
What's that?
Technology.
Yes.
When you could go back and review something and challenge a call.
Yes.
That is what put Angel Hernandez in his grave early.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because without that, what happened before video review? Nothing. You could go out there and argue, he could toss you, but nothing's going to change because you can't review the call.
Yes.
But now because you have all this technology, and I'm not going to say that the box that is above home plate is 100% accurate either.
Right.
But it's pretty close because it wouldn't be there unless it was pretty close. The amount of times he misses pitches that are not barely off the frame, but probably half the width of your bat off the frame.
Yes.
There's a problem.
So here's part of the issue with the numbers on umpire scorecard with Angel Hernandez is even though as we saw there, his first base calls are also atrocious. those are much easier calls to get right, and those count towards your umpire scorecard. Like 18 calls or 18 reviews over 3 years is not very many, right? So most of those calls are open and shut cases. Right. It's like clearly out, clearly safe. Right. Those count as accuracy towards.
That's what and that's a great point. That's a great thing to add in there, because every single call you make in a game goes towards your accuracy.
The scorecard, right?
So a ground ball to third base, if Yadi or Molina's running to first,
that
you
basically
walks.
Yeah, you beat by half the length of the baseline.
And he calls him out. That goes to your accuracy
right?
score.
But if there's, and I think there's a place, and I can't find it right now, where it only judges his balls and strikes accuracy as a behind the plate umpire, that's where it gets really, really bad, because he's one of the worst in the league at that. Is he better at bases? Yes, because most of the calls at bases are very easy. Like let's be totally real here. Most calls at a base are not close. And you and I can make those calls with no problem. It's the balls and strikes that Angel Hernandez gets himself in trouble on, because his strike zone is not just inaccurate, it's also like floating. Like it's like, oh, this is a strike today, this is a strike in inning 1, this is not a strike in inning 3, and it's all over the place. So while I appreciate the work that places like Umpire Scorecard do, it's not an accurate picture of the complaints against Angel Hernandez.
I don't know exactly how that website's measured, but one of our listeners, I'm going to read his name, Bald Book Tuber, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
that's what that is. He said, I'm talking about two different things. Umpire Scorecard measures balls and strike accuracy. The overturn calls on base aren't measured. Okay, well, if that is true, then, I feel like we need more statistics to tell me why Hernandez is good then, going back toward my conversation with the umpire.
Yeah.
Right, because if you are just going to base it off of what he does behind the plate, well, that's not what an umpire does every single day. You move to first, you move to third, you move to the middle, you're behind home plate, right? You always are shifting around. So that goes in totality. So maybe if I am incorrect because of the balls and strikes accurate, which, I'd have to do more research now to see how accurate he is on balls and strikes if Umpire Scorecard isn't 100%. Hey, he got it right 92% of the time, whatever. You have to factor in everything else.
Yes.
Because an umpire isn't just one thing. You wear many hats as an umpire.
Yeah, and
you got to be right.
I'd have to get in.
But he did add in Hernandez sucks.
Yeah,
so.
No, he's the worst. I mean, he's brutal. I'd also need to see it in comparison, because I don't think 92% is a good number. Like
especially since he's been umping since the late 90s.
Yeah, he's not new at this.
So 2% is probably a decent gap.
Well, and I think the best umpires are in the mid to upper 90s.
Are they?
I think so. I'd have to check on this, because I didn't see a place where you could see the top umpires versus the bottom ones here.
Okay, here I'm going to read this. Next paragraph, okay? And maybe this can go more toward the umpire scorecard argument. On April 8th, 2019, Boston U published a study on 11 seasons of Major League Baseball data, almost 4 million pitches analyzed to determine the accuracy of balls and strikes called. The study found that Hernandez performed stronger in 2018 than his average for 2008 through 2018. He averaged 19 incorrect calls a game, or 2.2 per inning. That seems pretty high.
Okay, so
even with this high error rate compared to his peers, he performed better than others across the list in 2018.
Okay, so I've got numbers here on Umpire Scorecard. I figured it out.
Wait,
okay.
During spring training in 2019, Hernandez claimed he got 4 calls wrong per game, but the study showed that his error rate was almost 5 times higher.
Okay, so here's the real numbers, okay? Angel Hernandez at 92% has the second worst accuracy rate.
Oh, well, there you go.
Of all of the umpires studied on Umpire Scorecard. And he's got the second worst differential between his accuracy rate and his expected accuracy rate, between that 92 and 94% that you talked about there. So, yeah, 92% is bad. That's a bad number. That means he misses almost.
So what you're telling me is the ump that was trying to argue with me saw one stat, saw 92%, just thought it was good,
and did not take context at all.
And did not go into it at all.
The best umpires are about 96.5%, and they're 3 to 4.5 points above their expected accuracy. So there is a large gap.
So
between
he
Angel
not only
Hernandez.
sucks behind the plate.
Yes.
He sucks in the field.
Yes, he is the second worst umpire behind the plate in the league. Only Scott Barry is worse.
So what does he need?
Keep your job.
So what does he need? Does he need glasses? Does he need to
Actually
needs to
do
leave
it
the
when the
league.
lights are on, right?
He should turn the lights on. That might help. No, it's he needs to leave the league. But they can't fire him because the umpires agreement, their union agreement is so strong they can't fire him. And so all they can do is not select him for postseason stuff. That's about all they can do. They have to wait for him to retire.
Man, can you imagine? Can you imagine showing up to your game, not knowing who is the crew for your game, and then you get to the field and you see Angel Hernandez and you just go, well, we're screwed.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The worst. He is, second worst umpire in the league. You can thank Scott Barry for him not being the worst umpire in the league. It's good. That's good company to keep, I think, there. Set up the show here real quick. A lot of umpire talk this morning.
Yeah, thanks for letting me go down my my rant rabbit hole.
It's all right. I didn't have that.
I've been wanting to talk about that for a while now.
I didn't have that on the bingo card, but that's okay. Coming up at 8 o'clock, we're going to talk to Brian Christopherson of Husker 24/7. At 8:30, we'll talk to Kevin Sjuts of 1011 News in Lincoln.
Kevin!
9:30, probably our farewell conversation with Joel Lorenzi.
Yeah,
of
wow.
the Omaha World
I'm excited
Herald.
for that, though, because, I mean, this dude, could you find a luckier guy on earth in sports? Like, he goes to, like, a really good Creighton team,
go to
and
the
now
Elite
he's
Eight.
going to a booming OKC team who has probably the best / most draft capital.
Oh, they've got the best
for the next 7 seasons.
Yeah, they've got the best draft capital for sure. Not to mention they've already got a bunch of really good young players. So that's going to be really fun. We'll ask him both about Creighton and kind of, I'm sure he's already started studying up on Oklahoma City as well. He's going to cover the Thunder for the Oklahoman. And then we'll wrap up the show with our very own Avarie Howard of Hurrdat Sports at 9:45. At 9 o'clock, I want to do a little mid-season college football exercise here. I think we're going to give out our mid-season Heisman, which is a very real thing and very important. People are going for the mid-season Heisman.
Yeah, it's a real certificate.
Yeah, it is a very real thing that we just made up for today. It is the mid-season coach of the year, and we will also do our mid-season playoff seedings. Now, important here, we're not
thing to note.
We're not predicting what's going to happen. We're saying if the season ended today, who would these people or teams be?
Let's do it.
So we will do that at 9 a.m. Plenty of room for you on the show as well. Call the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline, 888-638-4876.
Got a new game today, too.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait for the new game. We will play a new game at some point.
Guess who?
We'll see what time. And then
that's the name of the game.
That's the name of the game. I'm excited. I'm excited. Like Doc Sadler. You can email me, Ravi at hurrdatsports.com or Andrew at hurrdat.com.
Got it.
He's got that old school email address.
I'm an OG.
He's an OG. Coming up next, we're going to get into, a bunch of stuff probably, if I had to guess. College football. I think we got a lot of baseball in already today. Connor McDavid was acting like he was on the Mighty Ducks last night.
Yeah, he was just on a teacup ride.
He was just doing a little spinny spin on the ice there. All that and more coming up on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
No, it's the same way. You know, everything in the program, it starts with the head man. I mean, and he sets the tone. And the one thing he's always done is he always wants to be right there with the players. He doesn't want to be top down. He wants to be eye to eye with those guys. And everything he's done, from, again, sitting down and eating dinner with those guys to having them, he has them at his house right now during the year. I mean, you don't naturally hear that, but he has position groups at his house hosting, you know what I mean? And everything is always seeing eye to eye with those guys, so they know that when you coach them hard, that you're loving them hard, you know what I mean? So it's really easy to follow an example when he sets the tone like that.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me as well. We're live on ESPN Tri-Cities.
What do you think it would
AM 590 ESPN Omaha. Go ahead.
I just jumped right over you there.
It's all right.
I was thinking about food for a hot sec.
It's all right. I'm always thinking about food.
I was going to ask, what do you think it would take for us to be at eye level with Coach Rule and have a nice meal over at the Rule household?
Ooh, Coach Rule, if you're listening, invite us over. Let's have a little chit chat.
Coach Rule, if you're listening, we're coming to your house.
Oh, then you're cooking with gas.
I said invite us.
We'll use gas to get there.
Probably, yeah. I do really want to play pickleball with Matt Rule.
Do you think you'd win?
It depends on if we're playing singles, and it depends on who my teammate would be. If we're
Okay,
playing
well,
doubles.
if you were playing singles, would you win?
Ooh, I don't know how good he is, but I would have a good shot.
Really good.
According to like a Weapon X hybrid type of a guy.
The coaches,
yeah,
he's really stinking good.
Yeah, I'd like my chances.
Because I know you play a lot, so you're probably pretty good.
I play a lot, yeah.
So, okay, scenario.
Okay.
Coach Rule gets one player.
Mm-hmm.
You get one player.
Ooh.
But because Coach Rule knows everybody's strengths, you get first draft choice.
Ooh, okay. So I'm probably going to go height here because having some length and height on a pickleball court is a huge advantage. And I'm not that guy, obviously. All 5'9" of me. So
most of the football players are taller than us, except for Billy Kemp.
Yes. I'm trying to think here. I want to go some good lateral quickness. So tall and laterally quick, because like a Heinrich Harburg is really more like straight line speed type guy, more long speed than short burst.
Okay.
My initial thought is to go somewhere either like wide receiver or defensive back.
That would make sense with what you're trying to accomplish here.
Since almost all of the wide receivers are hurt, I'm probably going to pass on that group because the only wide receiver
Alex Bullock
that's like shifty and healthy is Billy Kemp, and I don't love the lack of height there. I need a little bit more.
Hey, but Alex Bullock may be the best route runner there.
He might be the best route runner there. Let me think here in the secondary. How
you
tall?
You have Newsome, you have Hartzog.
How tall is Hartzog's little? He's like 5'8". How tall is Newsome?
He is 6'1".
Okay, that's getting closer. How tall is Phelan Sanford has incredible testing numbers.
He does.
So that might be a guy. Yeah, how tall is Gifford?
Gifford is 6'1".
I don't know.
Okay.
Just kind of
Sanford, who just got a black shirt yesterday, by the way.
It's like 5'11", I think.
More like announced. I don't know if it was yesterday exactly.
I think he's about 5'11", if I'm recalling correctly.
He's not very tall.
Yeah, he's not huge.
Phelan Sanford on the nose, 5'11".
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Quentin Newsome.
6'1".
Yeah, he's got some height.
Shifty
Obviously,
DB.
got the athleticism. He's got the quickness I'm looking for. He can cover up for some of my, we'll call it lack of mobility. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go Quentin Newsome.
Who do you think Rule would take?
Well, he's probably going to know who's actually played pickleball before, so he's probably going to pick that guy.
Jeff Sims wouldn't have been a bad pick either.
No, he wouldn't have. I thought about Sims. I'm a little worried about the ankle and the health right now.
Yeah, but they say
he's healthy.
He's become the ultimate teammate.
Oh,
I mean, just think for a moment. You're the guy.
Mm-hmm.
You come into the university as the guy. At Fan Day, people are itching to get your signature on either their calendar or whatever, football, whatever you had with you.
Previous year's starting quarterback left because you were here.
Mm-hmm.
That's a thing that happened.
And you lost your job.
And you get a single digit, right?
You get a single digit and you lost your job. But talk about living up to the standard of the single digit.
Yeah.
Because he and the way his teammates talk about him is so impressive that he's not mad that Heinrich Harburg is starting over him.
No.
There's a lot of people that would be salty about that would want to enter the transfer portal, that would have a negative attitude when they show up every day. But that isn't Jeff Sims. And so when I think about Coach Rule found his guy, right? Everybody at first was like, prove to me, like, Coach Rule, tell me the conversation that you had with Georgia Tech's coach about why Jeff Sims was going to work at Nebraska. Maybe it really wasn't for the gameplay. Maybe it was for how he carries himself. And that's why Coach Rule said he was his guy. And maybe he thought, hey, I can evolve him into becoming a clean football quarterback.
Well, yeah, and that would kind of go in
clean,
line.
plain football quarterback.
Sure.
Quarterback, I mean.
Yeah. That would go in line with a lot of their recruiting strategies, honestly. If you look at some of the guys they've recruited both in their first class and in this 2024 class in terms of their confidence in their ability to develop football players from raw skills is really, really high. And it's really, really high because of the track record they have doing it at Temple and Baylor. And especially in year one, I think they believe the culture and character aspect of the players they recruited or are recruiting is just as important, if not more important, than the actual ability on the football field. That's why, so I've said this a couple times, and I think people misunderstood what I meant. When I've said that, maybe the Casey Thompson leaving thing wasn't about ability, it was about fit. That's not to say Casey Thompson is a bad guy. That's not to say that Casey Thompson wasn't a good teammate or was people throw out terms like locker room cancer and stuff like that. I don't think that was the case, but if his priorities and his mindset didn't line up with what Coach Rule's were, then maybe that's just not a good fit. Like, it's like when you're dating someone, right? Just because you guys don't work out or you break up with someone doesn't mean they're a bad person or you're a bad person. Sometimes it's not a good fit for what you're looking for what they're looking for. Like, I imagine Casey Thompson was looking to guarantee that he was a starter, considering it was his last year in college football, right? Like, there's no way Casey Thompson wanted to be in a quarterback battle and have a chance to not play his last year. Now, he gets injured at FAU anyway, but like, he wanted to go into a situation knowing like, hey, this is my job, right? Like, I've been in college for 6 years now. I want to make sure I've got this job. That's a totally reasonable position for Casey Thompson to take. It's also totally reasonable for Matt Rule to be like, yeah, I don't want to just hand somebody the job. Like, that's totally reasonable on both sides and doesn't make either person a bad person. It does make it a bad fit, right? Whereas Jeff Sims, maybe he came in and is like, hey, I don't need you to guarantee me anything. I don't need you to. I know we kind of guaranteed things to Jeff Sims, but we don't know that Matt Rule did that.
And we don't know the conversations and what
we don't know
like
that
in the room.
We don't know that Jeff Sims expected that.
I do know that Casey Thompson replied after he tore his ACL to comments on his Instagram saying that he never wanted to leave Nebraska.
Sure.
So were conversations, hey, did he take them as they pushed me out or that I wasn't a fit?
Yeah, and either way, like, I think he genuinely enjoyed his time at Nebraska here. And whether he was, I don't know that I would say he was pushed out. Maybe he just felt like, hey, this isn't the right spot for me anymore.
The offense also doesn't run the Casey Thompson way.
Yeah, I think they wanted somebody that was significantly more mobile. If you look at who they brought in with Jeff Sims, if you look at the way Heinrich Harburg,
but he can move his legs too, and I don't want to knock him for that either.
No, but he's not a true dual threat in the sense. He's pretty good around moving around the pocket, but he's not going to take off and run very often.
I'd be very curious about these conversations because, and until we know, all we can do is speculate.
Right.
But because coming into the season, I was in on the Casey Thompson hype. Well, I started on Jeff Sims.
Sure.
Because I'm like, man, you could probably have somebody that looks a little like Lamar Jackson-esque in the pocket, somebody that can scramble a lot, has great speed, can get up the field, good agility.
And by the way, he's got a terrific arm. Like, that's not a question. It's some of the decision-making, some of how he sees the field, but the arm's there.
But then the counter argument to all that was, well, Casey's proven, doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes. Casey, in a matter of a bad team, made them so competitive that they ended up beating Iowa at the end of the year. So those were things I thought about too. And I kind of rested on Casey until, they parted ways. But yeah, I'm curious now. I'm sitting here and I'm just in deep thought of what could have been said to change this whole idea. But what I know for sure is what I hear. And what I hear, going back to Jeff Sims, is that he is the ultimate teammate.
Oh, and not just what you hear, but what you see as well. Every time Heinrich Harburg comes off the field, who's the first person to greet him with a smile or an encouraging word or whatever? It's Jeff Sims every single time. Maybe that's the thing that was the best fit for Nebraska, not the on-field stuff like you were talking about. Coming up next, we will wrap up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
And again, it's the emphasis on who we think is going to be the starter for that game. You know, and that was one of Coach Rule's biggest deals. You know, he take less ceremony out of it and make sure that the black shirt meaning was restored, that there's going to be a way you play football here, defensive football here in Nebraska, right? And make sure that we want to be one of the top defensive teams in the country, period.
Wrapping up hour number one here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me as well. We have apparently struck a bit of a nerve on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. So people want to talk about our Casey Thompson conversation. Let's start with Random Mike.
I kind of like that. Random Mike.
Yeah, Random Mike. What were your thoughts?
This is a rare time where I actually have some useful information. I was listening. Your buddy, I think it was your buddy Chris Schmidt, interviewing Charles Thompson, famous Husker killer of the past and dad of Casey. Mm-hmm. And he talked about the conversations that took place before Casey transferred. And Rule apparently told him, and Charles said he really appreciated this. Rule told him, look, if you were my son or my nephew, I'd go to a place where you're guaranteed, just what you were saying, where you're pretty much guaranteed to play. You may become number one, but you may not. You know, it's a real battle. And they also wanted to go to a place where maybe he'd be better protected than he was. But basically, our coach, who's I think a man of character, said to him, look, if you were a member of my family, you only got 1 year left, and I would go to a place. So I don't know if he pushed him out the door, but he kind of encouraged him to go.
Yeah, and Random Mike, we appreciate the call and the insight.
Thanks, Mike.
There. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a big difference between saying, hey, like, you can encourage a guy to do what's best for them, and that happens in that situation to be leaving, and that there's a big difference between that and pushing a guy out, in my mind. Like, pushing a guy out is like, hey, we don't want you here. Right. I'm sure Matt Rule would have been thrilled if Casey Thompson wanted to be here and chose to stay here. But in the situation Casey Thompson was in, where it's like, hey, this is my last year, I really want to make sure I play.
He had every right to be selfish.
Yeah, and in that, like,
because is Casey Thompson going to be an NFL starting quarterback?
No, he's not.
Could he be somebody that played on a practice squad someday? Maybe
practice squad, even backup, like, because he's got the backup quarterbacks are sort of like junior assistant coaches a lot in the NFL. A lot of, I mean, look at
and he's a football junkie.
Yeah, he's a really, like, he's probably going to be a football coach someday. Like, he's really good at that part of the game, the mental part of the game, and so, like, I could see him being a backup in the NFL, but in order to do that, he probably still needs to put some more tape on. And so I don't have a problem with Casey Thompson looking out for his interests, and I actually really appreciate Matt Rule,
transparency that he offered.
Yeah, the transparency that Matt Rule offered, just being like, hey, I can't guarantee you're going to start. You certainly could, but if I was in your situation or I had a family member in your situation, like, yeah, I might look at trying to find a place where I had more guarantees. And that's totally okay on both sides. Like, I think I like how both people handled it there. And is that what was best for Nebraska necessarily? Weirdly, probably not in the short term, right? But long term, doing what's best for players is what's best for Nebraska. Like, this year would have been awesome to have had Casey Thompson in the room, right? Because he's definitely more advanced than Heinrich Harburg is right now.
But Coach Rule's not about guarantees.
No.
And he never has been about guarantees.
And he's not about...
So he wasn't going to start with Casey Thompson.
And he's not about mortgaging a kid's future for his program's short-term gain. That's something that he's been very clear about.
And you don't want to be a liar at the end of the day.
No.
What if Casey didn't win the job in the spring?
Yeah.
What if Casey...
was clearly not the best quarterback.
What if Jeff balled out?
Yeah.
And you were like, well, I promised Casey, so I kind of have to go here. Well, now you're hindering the team. Or you go, sorry, Casey, I'm going with Jeff, and now you just make somebody mad.
Yeah, and you've kind of ruined this kid's end of his football career. And so I very much appreciate the fact that he understands that if you do what's right by the players, long term, that's the right thing for your program, even if short term it hurts you a little bit. Joel in Council Bluffs has some insight on the Casey Thompson thing as well on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. Joel, what's going on?
What's up, Joel?
Good morning, guys. So, Casey, I'll first start off. I'm not going to bash any student athlete. Great kid, great teammate, a good high football IQ. But when it comes down to completions, yards, touchdowns, my point has always been, if you take away Trey Palmer, which he's gone, he's off in the NFL. If you take away Trey Palmer, you take away 1,000 yards of receiving, of passing yards, and I don't even know how many touchdowns, but I mean 9 or something like that.
Something close to it.
The stats just aren't there. He was a good quarterback, a good teammate, but was he going to start? Probably not. Trey Palmer was his production. Anytime you didn't see Trey Palmer in the game, they weren't getting them long shots down the yard. I think 4 games with 100 yards, plus yards. There was no way that he was going to perform, and they don't have another Trey Palmer on the team. That speed just isn't there. So, my point's always been, if you take away Trey Palmer, Casey Thompson is an average quarterback at best.
Appreciate the call, Joel. There is some truth to that.
Yeah, no, there is. I mean, so I'm looking at the numbers right now.
But I don't want that to just be like the end point, because if Trey Palmer wasn't there, then Casey wouldn't be a good quarterback, because the offense would look a lot different under Coach Rule than it looked last year.
Sure.
And last year it was, get the ball to Trey Palmer, because we know Trey Palmer is the most explosive guy on the football field.
And he's down there somewhere.
Right. But how often did Casey have time to throw it to Trey Palmer too?
Yeah,
he had a few games where they went off. The Purdue game, for one example, and then the bottom tier of the Big Ten teams against like Rutgers and Indiana. Like, he had those games that were productive with Trey Palmer, but against like the great teams, you're still probably in the same boat. So I wouldn't like totally rest with that. I get the point of,
and it's worth bringing up.
You take away 1,000 yards because all offseason we were talking about who's going to replace Trey Palmer.
Yeah.
So
no one, basically.
Stamp that in as, good thought. Yeah. But the caveat to all of that is the offensive line play wasn't great last year.
Sure.
And so Casey didn't have a whole lot of time, and he was getting beat up. Absolutely beat up in the backfield.
Yeah. And who's to say, I mean, honestly, I know Malachi Coleman is raw and hasn't really produced much yet, but he has run by some guys and hasn't gotten the ball thrown to him yet, right? There's been some where Tommy Hill has broken free and it's been a bad throw and he hasn't gotten the ball thrown to him.
Mm-hmm.
So there's guys he could have taken shots with. Are any of them Trey Palmer at this point? Certainly not, right? But it's not like he just wouldn't have thrown the ball to anyone. To be on the other side of that, to go to Joel's point, 1,000 of Casey Thompson's 2,400 yards were to Trey Palmer. 9.
Does Trey Palmer have 1,000 yards if it's not for Casey Thompson throwing the football?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
At one point,
two sides of that coin, right?
Are you going to put one strap on the backpack or both, right?
9 of the 17 touchdowns for Casey Thompson were to Trey Palmer. So obviously he was a big factor in his production. I don't want to say that he wouldn't have been productive at all. I do think the offensive line is better than it was last year. I think the offensive system is a little bit more cohesive than it was last year. And honestly, Billy Kemp would have been a really nice fit for Casey Thompson because Casey Thompson has the ability to execute that kind of short precision passing game that the quarterbacks on the roster right now don't have a great feel for.
Mm-hmm.
So Billy Kemp would have been really helpful to Casey Thompson in a different way than Trey Palmer was.
Helpful,
right?
Yes. Is there another Trey Palmer?
No. But you do have guys that he could have hit down the field that aren't currently being hit down the field.
Like Marcus Washington had a decent season with Casey Thompson at quarterback too.
Marcus Washington and I mean they were teammates back at Texas too. So Marcus Washington, had he stayed healthy, would have been good for Casey Thompson. And I genuinely think you would have seen more shots taken and hit to guys like Tommy Hill and Malachi Washington.
And I guess the only other comparison I can think of too, if we go to the NFL level, is is Kirk Cousins the same quarterback if Justin Jefferson
absolutely
isn't
not
on the field?
No. Is Joe Burrow the same quarterback without Jamar Chase? Like, Joe Burrow's a good quarterback who we all like. Is he the same guy without Jamar Chase? Probably not.
But I actually think that it's actually more similar than off the spectrum, because even without Justin Jefferson last week, KJ Osborne and Jordan Addison were able to do things. They're not able to do Justin Jefferson things, right? But you're still able to be a productive quarterback. So that's how I kind of want to look at every situation.
You're not taking
even when you
away,
lost your top talent,
absolutely,
your number one guy, the quarterback will just have to adjust. Everybody adjusts on the fly.
You're not taking away 100% of the production. Are you taking away, are you going from 100% to like 80%? Maybe, right? Because you don't have the 50-50 catches in traffic that some of those guys provide. You don't have maybe the deep shots that Trey Palmer provides. You don't have maybe the yards after catch that Justin Jefferson can provide. All of those things, they take their production down, but it doesn't go from 100 to 0. It goes from like 100 to 80 or 100 to 70.
But then you just look for that. You look, how do you make up for that?
Yeah.
Like that's what the Huskers had to figure out in the offseason. How do we make up for 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns or whatever it is? Are we seeing it yet? No, but they're finding other ways to score.
Well, I mean,
they're finding other ways to win football games. And ultimately, if you win, you don't really need 1,009. All you need is that W.
Honestly, what they've done to make up for it is QB run game. That's been the big thing that they didn't have last year, that they have this year, is QB run game. That's been, and listen, do they have 1,000 yards of it? No, but we're also only halfway through the season. They've got probably pretty close to 500 yards of it. I haven't looked at the stats lately, but between Jeff Sims and Harburg, I'm sure they've got pretty close to 500 yards of quarterback rushing on the course of the season. Like, that is kind of making up for the lost offense that Trey Palmer has, or that Trey Palmer provided. It's not always a one-to-one exchange. Like, oh, we lost Trey Palmer, we have to find another wide receiver. You just have to find enough offense to win, right? And for Nebraska, they're only 3-3. They probably should be 4-2 with that Minnesota game, but they found enough offense to win so far and it just looks a heck of a lot different than it did last year, and that's okay.
Do you win at Minnesota? Jeez, did I swallow a frog? Do you win at Minnesota if Casey Thompson's your quarterback?
I don't know, but I think you do if Heinrich Harburg is.
Either way.
That's the $1 million question, right? Coming up next, we're going to talk to our friend Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7 Sports, continuing our conversations about Nebraska as they leave their bye week and head into a matchup with the Titans of the Big Ten West, the Northwestern Wildcats. Coming up next on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Here is Husker 24/7 senior writer Brian Christopherson.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit of a circus act.
Brian Christopherson.
Well, I mean, that's pretty interesting.
Brian Christopherson.
I kind of enjoy that.
Here is Brian Christopherson.
Yeah, there's years where it's hard, and you got a lot of individuals, and you got a lot of situations of people, just playing time and roles and stuff, and it just kind of fights off each other, and it's not always fun. This is a group that, these kids just want to win. Literally, they don't care. Like Heinrich doesn't care if he throws a ball, right? As long as we have more points than the other team and it puts W on the left side of the column instead of L. That's all we care about. And when you have a group of coaches and a group of players like that, it's really cool to be a part of, and it's fun to come to work.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla, Andrew Rogers here with me, and we are joined now by Brian Christopherson of Husker 24/7. BC, how you doing this morning?
Doing pretty good. How are you guys?
Oh, we're just living the dream
Dandy.
out here. We're doing great. How was your bye week? How did you spend your free time away from Nebraska football?
I went up to Minnesota for a bit. I watched the Twins Astros game 4. That we don't got to get into that. No, most of the audience doesn't care. My guys lost. The Astros moved on, but the Astros are losing now, getting it from the Rangers. So that's okay with me.
BC, we just got done talking a little bit about, the quarterbacks, well, beyond with Casey Thompson. But before that, we were talking a little bit about Jeff Sims and the new role that he's kind of in now and how that was kind of like finally talked about, right? We saw it on the sidelines. We saw how happy he was for Harburg in moments throughout the game, but nobody really ever got to like the nitty-gritty details of what Jeff Sims has become. How hard do you think it was for him to be the guy coming in here, getting the single-digit number? Everybody was like, Jeff Sims is our hero, to now having to be in the passenger seat to your backup, but still hold the level of maturity he's had to be able to be the ultimate teammate on the sideline.
Yeah, first off, I'm sure it's extremely difficult if you're a competitor like that. And, he came here on a mission. I remember he was at Big Ten Media Days, and he was talking about how he had tried so hard to learn everybody's name. Remember that? He was putting stuff on the he was going home and doing his, research on guys' names so they could, when he see him in the hall, he would know all the new guys on his team. He's a guy who really adapted well to the locker room. Guys respect him, and you got to give him a lot of credit for, at a time where some people would have hung their heads and sort of checked out. He hasn't. And, there's still football in his career ahead. I know we didn't see the best so far of him at Nebraska, but we don't know what's around the corner, even in this season. We've seen a lot of years at this program where Nebraska needs 2 or 3 or 4 quarterbacks before this thing's over. And so he very well could get called on in the second half of the season. And the fact that he's still dialed in and behaving, basically like a captain, says a lot about his character. And it also says he's probably ready if he gets that moment. And I know this, the fans are going to see that. They're going to read those quotes about him, and they're going to want him to succeed, for obvious reasons, because he's a Husker, but there's going to be that added oomph if he gets back into the game, like, let's do this, So he's probably won a lot of fans just by the way he's handled a tough situation, because that's where you obviously learn a lot about people.
BC, we were talking earlier, Andrew and I were, about how maybe when Coach Rule was talking about Jeff Sims as his guy, and like they went out and found a guy that they really wanted, like, how much do you think maybe that had to do with his just kind of mindset and character as opposed to his skill set, which obviously there's a huge amount of talent there, but I mean, did we maybe overlook that other part?
It's possible. I mean, definitely, I think that was an attractive quality to bringing Jeff Sims in. They knew what type of guy you're adding to the locker room. And beyond that, he has high-level traits as a QB. Now, he's got to level stuff off with the turnovers and all those things. We all understand that. But he's got really good arm talent. I think he is a guy who really loves to study the game a lot, and they like that part about him. So there were all these traits you kind of stacked on top of one another, and you're like, yeah, that's going to work, I think. And it didn't for 2 games, and it was about as rough as it could go from the turnover department. And this is what happens in sports sometimes. Another guy comes in, Heinrich, I think, got a little benefit of playing non-Power 5 teams those first 2 starts, so it was probably a little bit easier entrance into the water for him than it was for Sims with those 2 road games. But nonetheless, Heinrich has run with the opportunity. And I think people listened to Satterfield the other day sort of heard the reasoning for it beyond, just the turnovers. Right now, this is an offense that is very run heavy, needs a lot out of that QB in the run game. Obviously, Sims can do that, but Heinrich is a very physical dude who we've heard a lot about in that category all through the offseason. We've seen it now in games where he'll run over and truck a defensive back and things like that. He just kind of fits with this grinder style they've got with this particular team, I think, right now, where you don't want to mess that up when you feel like, okay, you've won 3 out of the last 4. Let's see if we can carry this forward now.
BC, 3 new black shirts. Talked about yesterday, Butler, Sanford, and Henrich. We also know there are 12 now. So who gets the boot come game day?
Oh, I don't know if they will or won't. I don't know if they're going to just hold tight to 11. I think it's basically 11 or 12 is what it's going to be. More or less on this case. Reimer, of course, had a very unusual situation where it was kind of non-football related with the MRSA infection and which crept up and caused him to miss the Illinois game. So I think they thought it wasn't really fair to take it away. But basically, I like how they're doing it now. It's taken the fuss out of it. It feels like around here too often we've covered teams where it's like, oh, this guy got it removed because of this reason, or are they going to keep all of them, or are they going to have 16 of them all year? They're not playing like black shirts. You get that kind of talk during a season. They actually are playing like black shirts, and they've just simplified it to a way it has been done in the past, but not as much recently, where it's like, are you starting Saturday? Okay, you get the black jersey this week. It's easy to identify you. And I think I just like that. And I also feel like I love the black shirts tradition. Anyone who knows me knows I love the history of Husker football and all that's associated with it. But I also thought it got over the top in its production of how it was sometimes handed out, and it would just become too big of a social media creation and some of that stuff, and it kind of took away from it. And I like that this year, for the most part, we've steered clear of that. It's kind of been a behind the scenes, guys are honored to have it, but we're not going to put this in front of everybody's face. Let's just go play like it and earn that tag back more by the style you have on the field. And I think that's what they've been doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, ironically enough, you could make an argument that this is one of the few teams where you could give black shirts to 16 or 20 guys that actually.
Yeah, that's the funny part. Yeah, you really could, because they actually rotated that number this year. I mean, I was looking at the stats the other day. There's 8 linebackers who have played 122 or more snaps, and that's a neat storyline because I've heard talk of rotating for so long covering this team, and it's actually happening, but they're not rotating for rotating's sake either. They're actually putting guys in who can do the job. And I think the biggest compliment I can give them, Ravi, is, when let's say the 5th or 6th guy comes in a position, I'm not seeing a major drop off the ledge compared to the second guy. Sometimes you don't notice. I mean, the fact that Reimer was out against Illinois and Nick Henrich goes out, plays the best game of his season, maybe his career, 2 4th down stops. John Bullock had a nice night. You just didn't notice it as much. And that's a credit to, guys being ready for their number to be called, and kind of goes back to the Sims question. If he can be ready now, if he gets called at some point.
Yeah, BC, you mentioned the linebackers. It's kind of the same thing on the defensive line, though, as well. And I mean, you can make the argument it's true at all 3 levels of the defense. We saw Ty Robinson out for the first half of a game, and Nash Upmacher kind of emerges on the scene. You see guys moving around and, going from that jack spot to an end spot. And I mean, half the time I don't even notice when somebody important's not out there because the defense, like you said, there's really no drop off.
Yeah, and I'm not noticing sometimes when guys switch technically what they're doing within the defense. Maybe it's just my lack of football IQ, but for example, this week rules talking about like chief borders and accepting like playing more D-line and stuff like that. And sometimes the way they move them around, it's like, okay, he's D-line compared to Jack. I don't even pick it up during the game because they move around so much that it's not that noticeable. And that's a compliment. I think that's happening with Jamari Butler. He's a guy who's been moved around. And if there's one guy I'm really fired up about for this second half, and I just hope it takes off, it's Jamari Butler, because I've written probably 30 stories about that guy over 3 or 4 years, and they've all kind of been the same about he's building to something. He was a raw player when he came in. It's just around the corner. We might have just turned around the corner against Illinois. Let's see. But he had a great game, played 56 snaps, 1.5 sacks, could have had more, honestly. They need somebody like that. If he can disrupt at another level, that changes the defense even more.
BC, turn around for me. I want to see Butler written on the back of your shirt there, like a shirt. It doesn't shock me that you've been all over that guy.
Yeah, I don't have it written on this particular shirt. That one's in the wash right now. But
okay.
I do have a couple. Yeah.
BC, so the Huskers open as a double-digit favorite against Northwestern, and it's kind of crazy to think that one of these teams after Saturday will be 4-3. So a two-part question for you. Do you think, for one, that the line is spot on if Ben Bryant doesn't play? And two, what do you think are the keys to cleaning up on the field in order to have a so-called unanimously acclaimed successful second half of the season?
Yeah. First off, the spread, that seems about right to me. I know you get a few points for being at home sometimes. And, I think this Nebraska team with its defense, the way it's playing right now, is going to be very tough to score on in a game like Saturday's. Maybe we'll be surprised that sometimes you say stuff like that and you end up watching a 31-28 game. I'm not really expecting that, but I think the Black Shirts have a pretty good grip on things. Before I get to the second part of your question, one of the reasons I think that it goes back to what Tony White was talking about the other day was that goal line stand. And they had juice, but then there was just that added momentum that came from that where he talked about it. It was like it was a real belief on the sideline, like, all right, let's go play the rest of the night. We're stopping them. And can something like that even carry over into further games where you've had that moment where sometimes we overdo it with like turning point, like trying to find that flash of lightning in a season. But for this defense that was already pretty good, is at the moment they took it to another level. Let's see. Going forward, though, for the second half, that's a big part of it. But then the offense, of course, it's just, can they limit the unforced errors? They're not going to be a dynamic offense at this point. But if they are a unit that can just not fumble exchanges, have false starts, that derail drives in the red zone, I think they've scored touchdowns on only 9 of 18 trips to the red zone. First off, that's not enough trips inside the red zone. Secondly, that's a really bad touchdown percentage, and they've only scored at all 12 of the 18 times. So stuff like that is going to be the difference of winning these next 2 games. And then when you get to like Wisconsin and Iowa, at that point, when we cross that bridge, it's going to come down to, on those particular days, I think, can Nebraska's special teams rise up to and match like really great, teams at that phase of the game, and at least equalize that and not have the field position be a big disadvantage. So field position and all that stuff's really going to be critical the rest of the way, and just like playing smart, better complementary football than all your opponents, because they're not going to be pretty games. They're not going to be the games, if you're flipping by and you're an impartial observer of college football, where you're going to want to necessarily stay on it. That doesn't matter for Nebraska football right now. They have to find a way to win games like they won at Illinois, move on, get those bowl practices and all the development time that comes with it. That's really what it's about.
We're talking with Brian Christopherson on Husker 24/7. Brian, could I make the argument that for the team as a whole, it was actually really important to have a game where they did have as many errors as they did against Illinois and still come out with a win, because it kind of got to the feeling around here, and a lot of these guys are on the team from the last couple years, where if it felt like if anything went wrong, like they just did not have it in them to overcome it and win a game. Whereas at Illinois, a lot of things went wrong, right? And they had 2 fumbles in the red zone, 3 red zone trips without scores. Like, they really did not do themselves any favors, especially late, and still found a way to win. Could that for the team almost be the same type of sort of proof of concept moment that goal line stand was for the defense?
Yeah, it might be. Especially on the defensive side, where you realize like we can put out this fire. We've done it before. Like, let's just keep doing it. And I will have to say that was a game where there were moments where you're like, oh man, are they somehow going to lose this thing when it seemed impossible to do such a thing? I had that passing thought once or twice, but I have to say I didn't have it as strongly as I have other times, because it just did feel like the defense was like so in control of that game and they just weren't going to break. And so to actually go out and do it, to not wilt, I think it's good for that side of the ball. For the offense, it's hopefully a lot of teaching tape. I know there was a discussion about if Illinois was helping and inflict some of those false starts and bad officiating, all that stuff. But you got to know going forward, teams are going to try to test that. They're going to make you prove you can clean that up. So we need to see that from this offensive line. And, we need to see a group that's just a little more dialed in on that side of the ball. But, it was a team win at the end of the day. And I think as much as us, on the outside, we're like, oh, the defense played great, the offense was kind of a clunker. I get the sense inside the walls it's not very much like that. And that's a good thing for them to have, where there's an understanding of strengths and weaknesses, but also you're in it together, you're playing off of each other. And you just got to pick somebody up if they make a mistake. So that's a good thing when your team's behaving in that way.
BC, what do you think about the progress of Tristan Alvano since the start of the season? Being a freshman kicker, a true freshman coming in, got to be a little bit nerve-wracking, adjusting from high school to college, especially when you come in as an in-state recruit. But he went 0 for 3 on his first set of field goals, and then he got a little more comfortable in the 30 to 39-yard range against Illinois. Where do you see his freshman career going the rest of the way?
Yeah, I don't know for sure where it's going to go. Kicker is such a hard position to just like feel like, okay, he made that one, he's definitely going to make the next one. Because they always say, you're only as good as your last kick. It's like all of our jobs, really, I guess. You're only as good as your last segment or your last story sort of thing. But it can't hurt that he saw a couple go through last game. And the third one that he missed, it was kind of a tricky hold. It didn't feel like it was like ideal for him. So maybe there's a escape clause on that one for missing it. Michael Bruns, my coworker, talked to him after the game, and he was pretty confident about like making those kicks and what it meant going forward. So I think he was looking for a game where he made multiple kicks, got a little momentum, and was feeling good about things. And I think it's going to be a big deal when he can have that like 45-yarder, the little longer kick, and it goes through. That one to me might be the one that really like, okay, we're going with the wind behind the back now type of kick. So hopefully he gets that soon. And if it comes in a big moment, ideally maybe like the end of the first half, though, like where you get that warm up where you hit it with 4 seconds left in the first half, and it's not to walk off the game or something like that. That would be a nice like transition into making those kind of kicks.
Yeah, because he has plenty of leg every time he boots the ball. There's plenty of leg. It just comes down to finding in between the goalposts. Finding his spot in between the goalposts. But yeah, I kind of sit here and agree with you too until that big kick is made, because he is a big kick guy. That's his confidence level is always brewed on being able to make that big kick. So once he sees it go through, like I'm in agreement there. I think that's a good call, BC.
I think he's going to be all right, and I like that the staff didn't do anything hasty.
I think that's a huge point too, not to just cut the rope right then and there and be
especially
like, okay,
when
we're
you
done.
have another option. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, they're working through a lot of things. And Rule kind of said this a few weeks ago. It's like, well, Tristan's got to work on his part. Everybody's got to work on their thing if you look at how some things are going. So it was just a deal where you say, all right, it hasn't gone well. Let's keep working on this on practice. And, he's obviously got it in his skill set to be a great kicker here. And I think he will be over time. It's not easy to adjust to this level and all the pressure that goes with it. It's just a different game. And if he can find his rhythm at the end of this season, like a lot of guys, that's sort of that's the fun part of where we're at now. Guys can build and use this as a trampoline into 2024 too. So that's what we're watching here as we go into the second half.
BC, looking at the Northwestern game, I know they're 3-3. I know that Nebraska can't really afford to mark down wins against anyone, but this is a game Nebraska really has to win, right? Like there's no, on paper or on the field, there's really no reason for them to lose this game, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's definitely not a given, as anyone around here knows, but it's when you look at the slate in front of Nebraska and getting to 6-7 wins, whatever it's going to be, yeah, get this one, please, for the sake of sanity around here. There's an opportunity this week and next week, frankly, to make November pretty interesting around here. And I'm not talking about West Division titles and stuff like that. If we get to that on November 15th and we have those type of discussions where Nebraska needs this to happen or that to happen, that'll be fun too. But right now, they do have to take the approach on any given week. You're going to have to scrap like heck to get a win. And I think that's the way they're taking it. Rule had that comment this week. It kind of flew by, but it was like, some teams have that ability where they can have 3 or 4 games where they really have to be up because they have that type of talent where they can survive the other 8 weeks or whatever. He said here right now, every week you got to be up to beat Northern Illinois. You got to be up to beat Louisiana Tech and Northwestern. So that's the way they have to look at it. But yeah, Ravi, I mean, they got to get this one from the outside looking in because you got a little momentum right now. You're feeling good coming out of the bye. This fan base is at least sitting up in their seat. I think it was a pretty bummed out Husker fan base after Michigan, even though that was sort of an expected loss. The way it happened, people are like, man, what's going on? Like, it's tough to spend 3 hours over there watching that. And so they got people back a little bit with the win. Now in their front of their home fans, you got to go get it done. And, all those people are taking their whole day to watch it, make it worth their while. I think that's a big part of this too.
Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. BC, we appreciate your time. We'll talk to you again next week.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, BC.
Yep. That's Brian Christopherson. Before we head to break, I want to tell you about our friends over at Big Brothers Big Sisters. It's their mission to support one-to-one mentoring relationships that ignite the power and promise of youth. Go to mentoromaha.org to sign up and become a big or to donate.
You know who would be a great big?
Who's that?
Jeff Sims.
Jeff Sims would be a great big. Go to mentoromaha.org to become a big. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me. We are live on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and we're brought to you by Dyer Law. If you've been hurt in a personal injury accident, you can count on the Dyer Law team to provide you with a helping hand when you need it, no matter what you're dealing with. Call the Dyer Law team at 402-393-7529 or visit dyer.law to chat with a trusted professional about your personal injury claim. That's DYER.law. Joining us now, hopefully no personal injuries on his account, is our friend Kevin Sjuts from 1011 News in Lincoln. Kevin, how are you this morning?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Listening to you guys talk to BC and unpack the Nebraska-Illinois game, it seriously feels like it was a month ago.
Right? Yeah, it really does.
Like, we're not conditioned for a bye week. We were just in the throes of the season, and now you forced everybody to pause, and it just seems like time has crept along.
It almost feels like an entire offseason, Kevin. Like it feels like the time between the spring game and Minnesota. Like it feels like an eternity.
It's so right, because you can dissect that game. Not that it was a beautiful game to spend a week and a half on, trying to think of every down that was played, but you're right. There's a lot that has been discussed since the game happened, and I think we're all anxious to watch the team get back on the field this Saturday.
Kevin, speaking of the Illinois game, there was a quote that came from Marcus Satterfield's press conference yesterday that I want him to say, and then I'm going to follow it up with a question. So, Shane, can you play Satterfield 2, please?
Well, we need him. I mean, he's a talented running back. He's one of the most talented running backs, in our league. But if you can't hold on to the football, now you start messing with, wins and losses in people's lives. So, until people are proven that they can handle the pressure of carrying and the responsibility of carrying the football, then we're not going to put him out there and put him in those situations. So he had a good week. Continued to emphasize that EJ's done a really nice job just daily. You got to be careful. It can't be like the ninth inning and you're going out there, hey, you have a no-hitter. You can't be that, right? Because then it begins to backfire on you. But I think that EJ's done a really nice job of working with Anthony, and Anthony's been very mindful of what he needs to do to get back on the field.
Kev, can I call you Kev?
Yeah, sure.
You probably think this question is regarding Anthony Grant, but it's not. It's regarding how much of a bro Marcus Satterfield is. For him to say that if you don't take care of the football, you start messing with wins and losses in people's lives. I lost on an Anthony Grant fumble, my sports bet, because he fumbled it back 1 yard and it went from 57 to 56 and I had over 56.5. So how cool is it that Marcus Satterfield gets it and knows that a fumble like that messes with people's lives?
Are you saying that he's one of the basketball coaches that knows to check up a three when it's inconsequential because it's going to screw with defenders? Is that what you're saying, Andrew?
Amen, Kevin. Amen.
I don't think that this is quite the same concept. I get what you're saying. So the whole mess with people's lives, that was a sneaky drop in by Satterfield. When he said that yesterday, my ears perked up he's not playing here because lives. I mean, you can interpret that as the guys that like to put their money in Vegas. And also just the fact that, the coaches, their careers hinge on the athletes performing and putting them in positions to succeed. But that was my takeaway from that, is that he dropped in there. Mess with people's lives. I mean, we're in week 6, basically game 6 with this coaching staff, but they're not going to play. They want their guys to perform at a high level.
I mean, Kevin, if you want to get real meta on this, it's not just coaches, right? It's this, Coach Rule talked about earlier in the week, these cottage industries around college football. Well, Nebraska has entire cottage industries around one football team, right? With, the kind of stuff that we do. Obviously, you cover a lot of stuff besides Nebraska football, but, without Nebraska football, a lot of us wouldn't have jobs, right?
Absolutely. Cottage, that was, man, it's kind of fun covering this team. The football might not be stellar and exciting, but the availability that we have with the coaches and the players and their willingness to share pretty openly and speak so eloquently. I mean, you guys probably don't have any shortage of material to drop in the show. I mean, we have the same thing on the news. Every day we sit down and we're like, well, what are we going to run? Because we've got 10 to 12 really good sound bites. The cottage industries thing, that's a good call there. They were talking about the PFF and the football grids, and that people here, they want it though. You could have 1,000 podcasts covering one team, but listen, thankfully we're in a spot that people want the goods. It's been kind of fun so far, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen over the next month and a half.
Yeah, Kevin, you've kind of been all over the map. Started with state softball this week, which, man, talk about the numbers those games brought in. The buildup of state volleyball in just a few weeks, and, of course, the high school and football season and Husker football, but including the last week of high school football before playoffs. So is this the busiest time of year for you, or would you consider wrestling and basketball something that's a little more superior?
I'll take it a step further, Andrew. I'll say November, because that's when basketball gets going. So you will have postseason high school. You'll have Nebraska, hitting the home stretch. And then you've got, Nebraska, Creighton, all the hoops starting up. So that's the great crossover. Mid-November, that's the time where basically, I tell my wife and kids, I'll see you when I see you. And if we don't see each other in November, that'll be home for Christmas. And now look at Nebraska possibly going December 26th on a bowl game. It's like, well, I hope I get to be home for Christmas. You know, so,
maybe New Year.
Yeah, if not New Year's, then what? Valentine's. My wife, I'll see on Valentine's Day.
Hey, kids, we're celebrating Christmas on December 14th this year. Kevin, let's go back to high school football. Last week, or this is the last week before playoffs begin. Who are you kind of keeping an eye on now that could be making some noise based on how the second half of their football seasons have gone?
Well, I'll keep it to our viewing area. Obviously, you guys know Omaha better than I, and all the great games that were played there a week ago. This is the final week of the regular season. Lincoln Southeast here in the capital city. They've won 5 of 6, likely going to win this week. So they'll go 6 of 7. The regular season, so a strong finish. That's a team that if I'm a playoff qualifier in Class A, I don't know if I want to draw the Knights because they're going to be hot and they're getting better week by week. Lincoln East right now, they won the city championship. They wrapped it up last Friday with a nice victory over Lincoln North Star. They host Gretna, and that's going to be a great game at Sjuts Field to cap the regular season. So Lincoln East, Lincoln Southeast, those have our attention right now. North Star, outside chance of maybe getting the 16 seed and getting into the Class A playoffs. They would have to win this week at Columbus. And then if I go beyond that, Lincoln High is the 10th. They only have 2 wins on the season. Those 2 wins came with Joe Andreessen in at running back. He's a tough runner. The team looks totally different without him. They go to Norris. If Pius wins, despite the record, they would be district champs and they would qualify in Class B.
That's amazing.
Kevin,
with one about that district, you know,
with those Class A teams, you mentioned North Star might be able to sneak in, but really Southeast and East. Either of those teams, do you think have a legitimate shot at making a run at that state title?
The state title,
or at least the state title game.
Yeah, I was just going to say, getting into the state final, they would have a shot. I would probably put my money on Southeast more than East. It's all about falling on the right side of the bracket, correct? You know, you want to stay away from teams. Are they going to be jockeying to stay out of the 4-5 games?
To get out of playing West Side?
Exactly right. You know, the path looks totally different if you're on the 2 seed side of the bracket as opposed to the 1. So, and it's not just in Class A. I think the same conversation is being had in Class C too with Norfolk Catholic because, you know, I would be stunned if the Knights don't just cruise all the way to Memorial Stadium. So it's a little top heavy, you know, in Class A. It's a little top heavy in Class C too. But to get back to your question, I think East, Southeast, could they get to the final? Yes. I don't know that that's going to happen. I think getting to the semifinals is maybe more of a realistic destination for those 2 teams. I hope one of them proves me wrong, though.
Kevin Sjuts, 1011 News in Lincoln. Kevin, we appreciate your time. We'll talk to you again soon.
Wednesday, boys.
Hey, thanks, Kev.
I'm
going with Kev.
Our friend Kevin Sjuts, 1011 News in Lincoln. All right, coming up next.
New game.
We've got a new game. It's called Guess Who?
Yes, sir.
Andrew Rogers. It's of his own design.
Who's on first?
Who?
Who's on first?
Who?
Who's on first?
Who?
Yes.
Guess Who? That's the game coming up next. We're going to get Shane involved. If you want to be involved, give us a call, 888-638-4876 on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline. That will wrap up hour number 2 coming up next on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me. Shane Schillerberg in his little tree house over there producing the show.
Snoopy's doghouse.
It is, yeah, Snoopy's doghouse. We are about to play a game that Andrew came up with, and it's brought to you by our friends at Dingman's Collision Center. They have 4 great Omaha locations, in business for over 25 years, and first place Best of Omaha for 18 years running. They work on all makes and models because they invest in the latest technology to stay up to date, family owned and operated. And the best part is they give back to the community with every car repaired. Go to dingmans.com for more information. Andrew, take it away, my friend.
We are playing Guess Who.
Who? Like
is
the
on
owl?
first. No.
Oh, okay.
Who are you? Who? That's what we're playing. Guess who? Listeners can play too. So if you'd like to give us a call on the Warhorse Sportsbook phone line, is that the way to properly
I say hotline, but phone line works as well.
888-638-4876.
That's
Are we
correct.
still running that number?
As far as I know.
Give us a call there. You can play for yourself if you call in, or you could ask a member of the show to play for you. If not, Ravi, you'll take on game 1. Shane will take on game 2. Here's how the game works. It's only yes or no questions.
Mm-hmm.
You have 60 seconds to ask as many questions as needed to guess the individual.
Mm-hmm.
And you get one guess after the buzzer.
I assume this is a sports-related individual.
Could be. Could be somebody else.
Could be anybody.
Could be anybody. It's just guess who.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
Are you cool with that?
Yeah, I don't care. Let's do it.
All right. Let's go to the phone. Trent on line 1. Pot him up. Trent, good morning.
Oh, good morning. How are we doing?
Hey, good. We're playing Guess Who, Trent, and here's how the game works. So you can either play for yourself or you could have a member of the show play for you. I'm excluded because I know the person.
He's running the show.
So you choose either Ravi or Shane. Here's how the game works. You can only ask yes or no questions. You have 60 seconds to ask as many questions as needed to guess the individual, and you get one guess after the buzzer as a bonus guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So as an example, just so that we can get through it,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give everybody the answer off the top.
Okay.
Say the person is Derek Jeter.
Okay.
Okay. So your questions as you're asking would be like, is it a politician? I would say no. Is it an athlete? I'd say yes. Is it a male? I'd say yes. Does that make sense? You're trying to get to the person based on asking certain questions. Are we clear on that? Everybody good?
I'm good.
Okay. Trent, do you want to play for yourself or you want Ravi or Shane to play for you?
Oh, I may as well play.
I love it.
Let's do it, Trent.
I love it. Okay, so I'm going to show Ravi the person.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
And this is the person that he has to get to. Okay?
Okay, got it.
Okay? So, Trent, whenever you're ready, your 60 seconds begin now. Start asking.
All right. Is it an athlete?
It is. Shane, start the timer.
Male or female? Oh, wait. Is it a male?
It is not.
Is it a female?
Yes.
Could have been like Seabiscuit. You don't know.
Come again?
All right. Okay. Is it a individual sport or individual sport athlete?
No.
Team sport athlete?
Yes.
Okay. Is it basketball?
No. No.
Uh-oh.
Come on, Trent. Come on, Trent. 20 seconds.
All right. Is it tennis?
No.
Is it does it have to do with a ball?
Yes.
Is it volleyball?
No.
10 seconds.
Is it softball?
No.
Oh no. Oh no.
And time. Oh, Trent.
All right, Trent, you get one guess, and you didn't really get very far.
Guess any female athlete.
All right.
I hope he just pulls a rabbit out of his hat right now.
Megan Rapinoe.
Wow, pretty close, but
Right
no.
sport. Right sport.
No, it was Mia Hamm.
Oh no.
You were all over the sport. Unbelievable, Trent. Can't give you the prize, but
I want to play this game.
Terrific effort.
But since you are the first person to call in for the new game, I'm going to let a member of the show play for you to try to get you a gift card. We're going to give you redemption, but you can either have Ravi or Shane play for you.
You know what? I want Shane.
Shane! All right.
I was kidding. I didn't really want to play.
All right. This is who Shane has to guess.
Oh, okay. Okay, this is a tough one.
Shane, I think you can do it, though. You have 60 seconds whenever you're ready to start the timer. Ravi has backup time over here in case you don't want to multitask over there, because I know that can be difficult sometimes.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I guess so.
Okay, your 60 seconds start now.
Male or female?
You got to say yes or no questions.
Male.
Yes.
Do they play football?
No.
Do they play baseball?
No.
Do they play basketball?
No.
Do they play soccer?
No.
Are they a NASCAR driver?
No.
So they don't play. Do they play sports?
No.
Dang it. Are they a movie star?
Yes.
Are they in horror movies?
Yes.
Couple, yeah.
Well, this is tough. Are they under 30?
No.
Are they under 40?
No.
Are they under 50?
No.
Is it Robert De Niro?
No.
Is it Al Pacino?
No.
Is it Brad Pitt?
No.
Is it Man, this one's
15 seconds.
Do they wear glasses?
No. Sometimes, I guess.
Mostly no.
Johnny Depp? Is
No.
it Johnny Depp?
No.
Is it man. All right.
Time.
Get one more in. One more question.
Okay, so is it
You have one guess.
I'm giving him a question and a guess.
Okay. Question and a guess.
are they in sports movies?
No.
Not primarily. There might be one there in a deep cut, but not primarily. They're not known for sports movies.
That's awesome.
Give me your guess.
Jeez Louises. Is it it's not going to be, but is it Kurt Russell? But he's not him. I don't know.
It is not Kurt Russell. The man you are looking for is Kevin Bacon.
Oh,
Kevin Bacon.
Oh, wow.
Sorry, Trent.
Yeah, Trent.
That was tough.
0 for 2.
Oh, good.
Trent.
That's a tough one.
It is. But
This is a sports show, isn't it?
oh, shots fired.
Sometimes.
Shots fired. The guy who couldn't guess soccer is now firing shots.
I knew it was soccer the whole time. I just wanted to eliminate everything.
Trent, we appreciate the call, man. Thanks for playing.
Wait, we have time. We can do one for Robbie real quick.
You want to do one with Ravi?
Let's do one with Robbie.
For Trent to win.
Robbie, get in there.
All right, let's do it.
Trent's like, I want free money. Give me some gift cards to Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. Okay, I have one loaded up for Ravi. Ravi, you weren't like peeping my search bar.
I'm not. I'm over here. I'm eyes ahead, eyes forward.
Okay, Shane, this is who we're doing. Can you see my screen from back there? Use your glasses. You can't see it? Okay. All right, whatever.
That's fine.
This is who we're doing.
I can't see it.
All right, you're playing for Trent. If you get this right, we'll give Trent, I don't know, $10, $20 gift card. What do you
Let's
want?
do 25.
20. Oh, yeah, I guess we're giving Trent a lot of money today.
Balling. We're balling
Right.
today.
I love it.
This is coming out of Ravi's wallet. Trent,
Whoa.
60 seconds. Maybe we can get 1 out of 3. Maybe it's like the Diamondbacks and they steal game 3.
Here we go.
All right. Your 60 seconds start now.
Is it a male?
Yes.
Is it an athlete?
Yes.
The Rock.
No.
Is it a professional wrestler?
No.
Is it a driver?
No.
Okay.
You're going to go off on the wrong track. He was once an athlete.
Okay. They are retired?
Yes.
Okay. Do they still work in sports?
No.
Did they play baseball?
No.
Did they play football?
Yes.
Football. Have they done anything noteworthy in their post-playing career?
Yes.
But they don't still work in sports?
Correct.
Okay. Do they act?
No.
Are they on any television shows?
Sometimes pops up.
Did they play in the 90s?
No.
Did they play in the 2000s?
No.
Did they play in the 80s?
No.
Joe Namath.
No.
Did they play in the 70s?
No.
Did they Grady Sizemore?
No.
Did they
You're a little bit over time here.
Okay. Let's see. So I'm gonna have one more guess. We'll do one more guess here.
Yeah, I'll give you a question and a guess.
Okay. So they played football. They didn't play in any of those decades that I mentioned. So it's either really old or really young. Not an actor. Famous post-career. Occasionally pop up on television shows. Are they a quarterback? Former quarterback?
Yes.
Okay.
That's it. That's all you get. And you're not going to get it because you went the wrong way. You went left when you should have went right.
Tim Tebow.
No. The man you were looking for is Tom Osborne.
Oh gosh.
You went all player focused and not about the coach.
Yeah, I did.
I'm like, yeah, he played in like the 60s.
Back in the day.
Sorry,
Trent. Next time. Maybe next time.
All good. Thanks, Coach.
Hey, thanks for the call.
Appreciate Trent being a good sport. I'm sorry we're so bad at that game. That's a lot harder than it seemed. I thought it was going to be easy.
Yeah.
All right. Coming up next, we will wrap up hour number 1 and we will get into our mid-season college, or hour number 2, our mid-season college football here on Hurrdat Sports.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Like it's painful at times to watch. I get it. Like it's painful for coaches to watch because we put a lot of time into this and we have a picture of how we want it to look, and it doesn't always look that way. But we're having so much fun. Like there's ups, there's downs, but it's fun to come in each week and kind of figure out how we're going to utilize what we have and attack whoever we're playing, and see the guys kind of adapt their roles and put their blueprint on the plan. So it may not be high flying and scoring 80 points right now, but it's a heck of a time, and it's a lot of fun because it's a group of dudes doing it together that are on the same page. They're just willing to do whatever is needed to win. Like Billy Kemp wants to catch 12 balls a game. He comes up to us before the game, and he's like, I don't care if I catch a effing ball all night. He goes, I'm gonna block my butt off, and whatever we have to do to win, coach. It's just little things like that. It's fun to be around these guys.
Welcome into hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We are live on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and for our 9 o'clock hour, KFOR in Lincoln. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me.
What up?
Coming off of a terrific game of Guess Who that we all struck out on, but I think we played a little bit during the break. I think we might revisit.
We can clean it up.
Yeah.
It got a little ugly there, just like the Huskers against Illinois.
That's
but you
all
know what? If you clean things up by season's end, we'll have a bowl game.
Clean up some of the turnovers, get into it a little bit. No, we feel good about it. No, that was fun. We appreciate Trent coming in and participating as well. And, next time, whoever calls in next, we'll try and get you a W next time. Much like
go with
with
Ravi first instead of me.
Like I told you guys. It's like golf.
Yeah.
Right? Golf is so hard to be good at.
If it was easy, nobody would care.
Right.
Yeah.
And because of how difficult Guess Who is, it's going to get people wanting to come back and be the first to win.
It's true. We've had 0 winners on Guess Who so far. And that's why I won $25. It's a tough game.
Mm-hmm.
You get a good prize for a tough game.
We'll double it next week.
Yeah, maybe double it every week till somebody wins. Just kidding. I don't
think Boss Man would like that.
We gotta have the boss sign off on that. We have a cap though. We wanted to get into our some mid-season college football awards, honors, whatever you want to call them.
Accolades, superlatives. We can go down the list.
Yeah, high school superlatives. That actually would
best smile.
That would have been a fun bit. I should have done that. I didn't think about that. We still got time this week. The couple things that I wanted to get to were, number one, and we can do these in any order we want. I want to get to my mid-season Heisman. I want to get to mid-season Coach of the Year. And if the season ended, these are all if season ended today, what the college football playoff would be. And I don't care what the rankings are.
Mm-hmm.
I want your best 4 teams in college football right now. So let's start with what do you want to start? I kind of want to start with the Heisman.
Okay, let's go.
This one's pretty easy for me.
You're going Michael Penix.
I'm absolutely going Michael Penix.
He's the favorite right now.
By far the best player on, I think, the team, a team that has, I don't know if Oregon's the best win of the season, but that's one of the best performances of the season, I think. And I just love the way that team's playing right now. I think it's Michael Penix for me. I don't think there's a lot of argument. In my mind, I think he's the clear-cut winner right now.
Well, with the guys that are up there in the rankings with him, I would agree.
Yeah.
So Michael Penix, I would give the award to right now, too, just because I know how the Heisman is voted on.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
And people vote on the Heisman not only based off of, hey, are you undefeated,
Mm-hmm.
right? Are you going to potentially lead your
playoff.
team to the college football playoff or beyond?
Mm-hmm.
But it's all about stats, right?
Mm-hmm.
Caleb Williams, it wasn't on the best of USC teams even last year. Like they were highly ranked, but they weren't like
they were going to win a
national
title.
championship
No.
caliber team. But because of his ability to put numbers on paper, it led to him winning the Heisman Trophy.
Still lead a winning team.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Michael Penix is doing. Michael Penix will throw for 300, 400 yards in games. He's going to put up the flashy numbers. He's going to have 4 passing touchdowns. He still will be able to scramble and get some yards, and he'll limit the turnovers. And that's what people like. That's a Heisman caliber performance. And he's putting his position, he's putting his team in position to win football games and be a team that could contend for a national title. That's why he has the vote right now and will stay with that vote until probably the Pac-12 championship game. And if that game goes down as an L, then we can revisit and see like, hey, Dylan Gabriel in Oklahoma may still be an undefeated Big 12 team in the playoff. He may be in contention now. Yeah. Or you may have J.J. McCarthy that keeps climbing the ranks slowly but surely. I know he's not everybody's favorite because he doesn't put up the flashy numbers.
Well, and he's going to need huge performances come November 11th when they play Penn State, and then 2 weeks later when they play Ohio State. Nothing in Michigan season matters until November 11th.
And look, Jordan Travis is still up there too for me.
Yeah.
I mean,
I love Jordan Travis.
He's led a Florida State team
6-0.
to 6-0. They beat Clemson without Jordan Travis, and they beat LSU to open the year. And even though they got close with Boston College, like I'm not too worried about that.
That game was 31-10. They let them sneak back in.
I'm not too worried about that.
That was not a 31-29 game. Like if you watch that game, they were up by 3 touchdowns and let off the gas.
And look, you have Drake May too. That's putting up great numbers at UNC.
And that at the end of the season, you might be looking at Jordan Travis and Drake May in the ACC championship game, and that could be really interesting too.
And look, if Drake May keeps putting up great numbers as he is, a lot of I don't want to speak for the Heisman voters out there, but to me, it seems a lot of Heisman voters also take into account where this person is going to land on draft night.
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, it depends on the year, but that certainly seems to be a factor just because like it's almost like a tiebreaker in my mind. I don't think it's a main decider, but I do think it's a tiebreaker.
But it's at least thought about,
yeah,
right?
I think so.
But as of right now, Michael Penix has it for me because the resilience he showed against Oregon in a game to where it seemed as if Oregon was just going to control it the rest of the way, and then he puts together one final drive and ends up scoring a touchdown. I even think if that game goes to overtime, Washington probably secures the win, just because of the confidence Michael Penix had in his game at that point.
So the one thing that I'm kind of looking for, and I like that at this point in the year, like, yes, Michael Penix is the clear front runner. I don't think it's, like it seemed like Caleb Williams had that thing wrapped up pretty early last year. I do think there are a lot of other guys that still have an opportunity to make that run, whether it's J.J. McCarthy in November, whether it's like Dylan Gabriel has that huge moment over Texas, right, to win that game. But it doesn't seem like any one of these guys has that quote unquote Heisman moment yet, right? That one moment, that one play in a huge game that really differentiates them from the crowd. And you don't always have one, but in a field like this where there's no clear-cut guy, it wouldn't surprise me if we get a Heisman moment that ends up being the differentiator. Right. I'm still kind of waiting on that from each of these guys, right? And maybe that was Penix at the end of the Oregon game, but I still think there might be more out there. So that's kind of my caveat. Like if the season ended right now, it's Michael Penix.
But how many players right now have the ability to make a Heisman moment happen?
I think a bunch.
Because I don't think there is that many out there. I think based on the names that you see at the top of the chart and where they're listed with current odds, I don't think a Heisman moment, even if somebody were to have one, is there to overstep what Michael Penix has already done this year.
That's
I also think, too, if Bo Nix and Oregon would have won that game, Bo Nix right now would be the favorite to win the
he very well could be.
And so maybe that is just the early season Heisman moment. Dylan Gabriel and Oklahoma, who in the Big 12 do they really play outside of Texas?
Yeah, so they're going to have to.
And Dylan Gabriel led a touchdown drive to win that football game.
Drive, yeah.
But I still don't know if that was bigger than what Michael Penix has already done. You look at J.J. McCarthy, and I don't know if he has the offensive stats to compete with the other guys at the top.
Not unless he has these incredible games against Penn State and Ohio State at the end of the year.
You have Jaden Daniels, who already has an L on his list. Two L's. I'm sorry, two L's on his list. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
I don't think he's in there.
Jordan Travis could.
Yeah.
He's probably the next guy in line. I think
you've got Duke this week, who's a top 20 team. You've got probably North Carolina down the road.
And then you have the ACC championship game. Yeah. And then you have, Drake May, and then it's Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, Carson Beck, and Carson Beck will not do it.
No.
And then down the list, unless Drew Aller somehow, some way goes crazy, it's not going to be him. The only guy I really see being competitive to Michael Penix right now is Jordan Travis. But I think Penix will keep the edge because the Pac-12 isn't very strong. They will have Oregon State later on, and I don't want to knock on Oregon State because they've been a really good football team.
Yeah.
But all in all, it's kind of like the ACC. There's ranked teams, but I still think Washington's better. There's ranked teams, and I still think Florida State's better.
Yeah, I think Washington's schedule the rest of the way out is better than Florida State's. I'm checking right here because I'm trying to remember who they've played or who they've got left. So they've got USC left. That'll be a big game. They've got Utah left. That'll be a big game.
If Cam Rising's playing.
Even without, they're still in the top 15. I mean,
right.
And then they've got Oregon State, which is top 12 right now. So they've got 3 ranked teams left on the schedule. Now, to your point, and they've got Washington State at the end of the year, which is a good team. They're not currently ranked. But to your point, the only sexy team left on that schedule is USC, right? There's not a lot of sexy, big marquee matchups left, even though I think like Utah's really good. Oregon State's really good. Washington State's really good. None of those are really like big, sexy games.
Now, I also think this, though, because Bo Nix didn't play bad.
No.
Right? If Bo Nix were to win out, somehow squeak into the college football playoff and beat and have a Heisman moment in the Pac-12 championship game, Bo Nix could sneak back into conversation. He could easily be a finalist.
Oh, yeah, for sure. If Oregon wins out and Washington stumbles at some point, because I do think Washington needs to go undefeated for Penix to win the Heisman.
That wouldn't shock me. I would agree with that.
I think they need to go into but looking at Jordan Travis, he is I think in a worse spot than Penix schedule wise, because the last ranked team currently on their schedule is Duke this week. Then you've got Wake Forest, Pitt, Miami, which is a marquee game but not a ranked team, and they've struggled of late. North Alabama, which is whatever.
Yeah, the sloppy one.
And then you've got Florida, who again, marquee game, rivalry.
Hasn't been very good.
Florida's not very good.
But then the ACC championship game,
which if he balls out there and is really good against like a North Carolina,
and they're in the college football playoff,
especially if North Carolina's undefeated at that point, that would be a huge potential moment. Same kind of thing with Michael Penix at Washington. Let's say they go undefeated, he balls out.
But you're right, he does have a harder path.
He's got a harder path, but let's say he balls out against Caleb Williams in kind of a head-to-head Heisman matchup, right? And then goes and dominates Oregon and puts up those numbers again. It's Penix's to lose right now,
and
sure.
And I think that's where we settle. It's Penix's now, it's Penix's then.
Yeah.
Right? Because the whole point of this was who's the Heisman now?
Right now,
it's still Michael Penix.
Absolutely Michael Penix. The only interesting conversation is what happens the rest of the way, because clearly right now it's Penix. And I don't think, Dylan Gabriel interests me because of the big Texas win, because Oklahoma's a really marquee team. They certainly have a shot at the playoff. Looking at their way out, they go UCF this week, nothing. Kansas, nothing. Oklahoma State, nothing. West Virginia, nothing. BYU, nothing. TCU. Like, he's got an even worse way out than Jordan Travis does.
But Dylan Gabriel looks really strong.
He does.
And that team that has been built in Oklahoma since Lincoln Riley's left, this team looks really, really good. I wouldn't be shocked if they are everybody's surprise that makes the college football playoff.
Yeah,
I would not be shocked.
I certainly think they're in that conversation.
Because they could be the TCU of last year.
So
they could be the Cincinnati from a few years ago. I know Cincinnati and Oklahoma are drastically different when it comes to, why are they in the same conversation? But in terms of teams that they've played outside of Texas, that's kind of what you're getting with an undefeated team in Oklahoma.
Absolutely. So we both agree on Michael Penix now, and it's his to lose for the rest of the year. Let's move on to Coach of the Year before we get to playoffs.
Sure.
This is going to seem like a Washington fan podcast here on my part. I think the easy answer is Kalen DeBoer. He's been really – this is almost a 2-year award for me for Kalen DeBoer, because he's been really, really good the last 2 years at Washington. I think he's one of the best coaches in the country. He is obviously got Washington in a spot to make a college football playoff. That's an incredible job that he's done there. You could make an argument for Brent Venables for turning around from where they were last year. They go 6-6 in the regular season. They lose the bowl game to Florida State.
Which is so crazy that they still ended up in the Pop-Tart Bowl.
Well, and if you look at that season, it's kind of, I hate
against Florida State is what I
mean. Yeah, no, for
that's
sure.
what I found was crazy.
For sure, especially considering Florida State was a 10-win team. Like, they were
weren't they like rank 11 at the time?
Yeah, they were it was a weird mismatch. It was just, hey, let's get eyeballs on this game, right? Florida State Oklahoma is a big matchup. But the Oklahoma team, it's a big turnaround from last year, although probably not as big as the records would indicate. They lost a bunch of one-score games last year. I know Nebraska fans hating that. But when other teams lose one-score games, usually there's a regression back to the mean, and they start winning some of those. That's what Oklahoma's done this year. Dylan Gabriel's healthier, is playing better. Brent Venables, you could certainly make an argument for him for Coach of the Year at this point as well. Is there any other candidates? Let's start with Power 5, because I know you've got some off-the-radar candidates as well. Anybody else in the Power 5 that you're looking at is like, yeah, maybe – I mean –
for Coach of the Year?
Yeah, I kind of look at a Mac Brown. Like,
I think Mac Brown is definitely up there because UNC, even though they had Drake May coming in, but you still got to recruit around him. And getting Tez Walker out of the portal was big.
And he's done a phenomenal job at North Carolina.
Mac Brown's just a good coach.
I was so skeptical when he came out of, like, quote unquote. I mean, never really retired, right? But he came out of TV and he'd been out of the game for a hot minute. I was super skeptical, and it's worked out way better than I ever imagined.
I think James Franklin deserves some love too, because I've always been on the James Franklin hype train. I think he's one of the best coaches in college football, and I don't think he ever got the love next to Ryan Day and Jim Harbaugh in the Big Ten, but especially at the national outlook too. James Franklin has kind of been somebody that's just slept on.
There's part of me that would take James Franklin over Ryan Day.
I would do. I would absolutely do that.
I'm not,
because I think James Franklin and his ability to recruit is unmatched.
Also, Ryan Day is one of those, like he was,
but Ryan Day also doesn't lose a lot of football.
Yeah,
games.
no, he's a really good football coach, right? But I also don't know how good he would be in the situations that James Franklin was put in, right? Like, does Ryan Day win at Vanderbilt? I don't know. Does he win at Penn State? Maybe. But Penn State also wasn't in the position that Ohio State was in when Ryan Day took over. So it's really hard for me when guys just take over incredible. Like Kirby Smart's another good example. Is he a really good football coach? Obviously. Could Kirby Smart win at Vanderbilt? I don't know.
Right.
Because he was in a really good position when he took over. Ryan Day was in an incredible position when he took over. And I don't necessarily want to hold that against guys, but it does make me wonder if they're builders or just sustainers, right? Ryan Day is really good at sustaining what Urban Meyer started at Ohio State. Would he be able to build a program the way James Franklin has, or the way that Matt Rule has a couple times? So those are some interesting names. Who are some of the off the radar names that you're thinking of for Coach of the Year?
Well, the one I love is Troy Calhoun
over at Air Force.
I think Air Force's head coach
is doing a great job.
Is number one on my list, even for Coach of the Year.
Sure,
because look at what he's been able to do since 2007. He's led this Air Force program to an 11-win season in 2019, 4 10-win seasons in 2014, 2016, 2021, and 2022, 2 9-win seasons, 2007 and 2010, and 3 8-win seasons, 2008, 2009, and 2015. Troy Calhoun's a winner at Air Force. And until really this year, how many people have looked at Air Force and put them in the same category as Navy? Because Navy, even last year, was like, oh, they're the best of the military schools.
Yeah.
But have we just been sleeping on Air Force so much? Like, I know Air Force is ranked and they're undefeated this year, and that's why they get so much attention. But have we overlooked what Troy Calhoun has actually done at that program?
I think we have. I mean, I don't know that people appreciate just how good they've been. I mean, it's crazy how good they've been.
He won his 100th game in the 2020 season. So he was there for 13 years and won his 100th game.
Yeah.
How many coaches do that?
Not a lot.
Not many.
No.
And he's probably going to die at Air Force. That's how good of a coach he is.
He might be. And it's, there's a part of me that wishes he would get a shot at a bigger school because he's been so successful. I don't even know if he wants to leave, but he's been so good at Air Force. You almost wish that he would get a shot at a bigger school to prove himself. But again, who knows? Maybe he doesn't want that. The other guy that I did want to call out from kind of the group of 5 in the Sun Belt over there is Curt Cignetti at James Madison. They are 6-0 this year. I know our friends over at like Adam McClintock and Dave Bartu over at College Football Analytical. Their stats on Curt Cignetti are off the charts. He's 6-0 at James Madison. I just wanted to call that out.
What a team to root for, too, James Madison.
Right? And they, they just moved up from FCS a couple years ago. They're in the Sun Belt Conference now, 8-3 the first year. But this dude, across all levels of football, just because most people have probably never heard of him, and that's okay, because I wouldn't have heard of him unless I was talking to our friend Adam McClintock.
Right.
Across all levels of football. So he was in Division II, then at Elon in the FCS, then at James Madison in the FCS, and now at James Madison moved up. He's 114-34 as a head coach. He is 80 games above 500 as a head coach. That dude is crazy good, and the stats back it up for him as well. So I'm not going to say he's my coach of the year or anything like that, but I just wanted to call him out because he's doing an incredible job at James Madison, has been doing an incredible job.
I think Norvell also has done a great job at Florida State, taking over what Willie Taggart destroyed.
Yeah, so that's a multi-year if you were going to consider him, because he really – and it was kind of a slow build. People were getting frustrated with him. They go 5-7 the first couple of years. They finally break through last year. But Mike Norvell has done an incredible job in a program that people don't really understand. Jimbo Fisher did not leave that program in good shape. Jimbo Fisher was bad his last year there. And he had started mailing it in for a couple years there because he had issues with administration. So you're talking about 4 to 5 years of pretty bad leadership at Florida State before Mike Norvell took over, and he has turned that thing around. Obviously, they're in a position to make the college football playoff. Speaking of which, transition.
That's what we call the perfect transition.
This is our college football playoff just for what's happened so far.
Which is hard to predict. Honestly, this has been really,
because there's a ton of undefeated teams.
This has been more difficult than, well, the Heisman, of course, but even the coaches for me. Like this right here, I'm like trying to balance schedule and record, and I'm like,
so there's a team I'm going to leave out here.
What's to come?
There's a team I'm going to leave out here that's probably going to make people mad, but and maybe a couple teams, but it's because I don't think they haven't played anybody yet. Because of the number of undefeated teams we've got left here, which we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think we've got 8 Power 5 teams that are undefeated still.
Yep.
And at this point, that means half of them are getting left out. So you have to start parsing things like schedule and whatever. For me, it's a pretty easy line between teams that have played somebody and teams that haven't.
Right.
Georgia hasn't really played anybody. They're
Not
out
yet.
for me. Like I'm out at this point. If the season ended today, Georgia's not in the playoff for me. They just haven't beat anybody that matters. Michigan's out for me too. They haven't beat anybody that matters. Like I said earlier, their season doesn't start until November 11th when they play Penn State. North Carolina, they're out for me. They haven't beat anybody yet. They haven't beat anybody that matters yet. We've seen what Miami is now. We saw that Georgia Tech game. Penn State, haven't beat anybody. They're out for me. Mine, Oklahoma. That Texas game was an impressive win.
Sure was.
Ohio State, I think that win over Notre Dame is a really good win. Florida State might have the best resume with wins over LSU and Clemson.
Right.
And then Washington with that win over Oregon. Those are my 4.
So I'm basing mine not just off schedule wins, but just the teams I know they are.
Sure.
So Georgia is still my 1.
That's fair.
And,
totally fair.
And the reason for that is they just command football games. They command wins. And that defense is so good. And still is.
Yeah.
After graduating all those people.
Yeah, even after losing all those guys in the NFL.
And they have a really heavy second half of the year, so I'm interested because, as you said, they haven't played anybody of relevance outside of Kentucky.
And a lot of these teams their schedule picks up, right?
Right.
Michigan, Penn State, Georgia.
Georgia plays Mizzou November 4th. Georgia plays Mississippi November 11th.
Yeah.
Georgia plays Tennessee November 18th. Like, those are coming around.
Penn State's season starts this week against Ohio State.
But I can't put Penn State in yet because of where they are in the current rankings.
I can't either.
I would love to put them in.
Yeah.
I just can't.
They got to win some games.
My 1 is Georgia.
Okay.
My 2 is still Michigan.
Okay.
My 3 is Washington.
Okay.
And my 4 is Florida State.
I think that's totally fair.
Even though Oklahoma had that win against Texas,
not enough.
There's
for you
just
yet?
not enough for me.
Totally fair.
And I think Oklahoma, even if they end undefeated, based on all the other teams that should still be undefeated, because we'll have one Big Ten team.
Yeah. Maybe
I would
2.
guess in the college football playoff.
Yeah.
You'll have Georgia in the college football playoff. I think Florida State gets in, and I think Washington gets in. I think you're going to have Oklahoma as the 5.
They might be left out. An undefeated Oklahoma team may be left out. We'll see. Coming up next, we're going to talk to our friend Joel Lorenzi from the Omaha World Herald.
We will be back.
Gilchrist Alexander with a beautiful spin move. He won Thunder. Tie ball game at 110, 2:35 to go.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Gilgeous Alexander with a beautiful spin move into the paint and a basket there. He's got 23. 86-81 Thunder. He inbounded again to Gilgeous Alexander up top. This is the Giddey of the free throw line. Bounce pass to Jalen Williams for the two-hand stuff. Tie ball game at 110, 2:35 to go.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me as well. We are about to be joined by our friend Joel Lorenzi. Before we do that, though, I want to tell you about our friends at Rockbrook Camera. They are not just about selling you a camera. They're about trying to make you the best photographer you can be, whether you're a professional or just trying to capture some memories. Rockbrook Camera has you covered. Latest technology and support after the sale. You can trade in your old gear to upgrade or try out their extensive rental section as well. RockbrookCamera.com, or you can see them at 168th and Center in Omaha, 70th and Pioneer in Lincoln. Joining us now is our friend Joel Lorenzi from the Omaha World Herald. Shortly, soon to be a Thunder beat writer for the Oklahoman. Joel, what's going on, man?
What's going on, guys? Good to talk to y'all.
What up, Joel? It's good to hear your voice, man.
Man, it's been a minute, Andrew.
It has. It has, man. First off, I want to openly say, I know I've already told you this on social media, but man, congratulations on taking that next step. You've been unbelievable here in town covering Creighton, and like, I know I've been short-lived here, so I can't touch on the other Creighton writers that either have been with the Omaha World Herald or beyond. But I mean, the work that you've done is unmatched, and I know your goal has always been to get to the NBA. So kudos to you for getting there so fast.
I appreciate that. It means everything.
Hey, let's talk about that move, though.
Yeah.
Because OKC is just making headlines, right? And I was kind of on the OKC train a little bit last year because of what they've been able to accomplish with such a young team. But let's just talk about their trade capital for a hot minute. Like you gotta think this, Joel, too, right? That they have set themselves up for the brightest future of any NBA team.
No doubt. And I'll give you your credit. You were on that train. I don't think I was so high on them last year, especially because, I think it was hard to at the start of the year. I'm not sure everybody thought J-Dub would be as good as he already is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Chet wasn't available, so it was like, what would the team look like? Maybe people didn't expect, a certain leap from Giddey. And then obviously Shai Gilgeous, as good as he was and is, first team All-NBA probably would have been far-fetched a summer ago, right?
Oh, yeah.
They're more than ready to take that leap and are definitely, I think they're the overwhelming, consensus pick for most promising young core. And in terms of, the draft capital and everything they got, I can't say I'm surprised. Like Sam Presti, this dude is widely regarded as a genius. And for the right reasons, man. Like this would be the second time, assuming this thing plays out how I think it'll play out. This will be the second time he's created almost like a dynasty. I mean, I think those early, 2010 Thunder teams were basically a dynasty. I mean, it had 3 MVPs, right? Even if people didn't realize. And I think I don't know if the team has 3 MVPs, but they really got the pieces to cook up something special, man. And I think they're set up to where they could really pay all these dudes that matter. And are, like you said, with all the draft capital, they're a trade away from really convincing people like they're a contender.
Joel, I'm a little jealous because you've got a couple of guys that are some of my low key favorites in the league. I've been really high on Chet Holmgren. I'm really excited to see him in his first NBA season, and I've always really low key liked Josh Giddey too, who doesn't get a ton of love, but I love the way that dude plays basketball. So I'm a little jealous on that front. I think you're going to be able to watch some really beautiful basketball there. But you mentioned that draft capital. I think a lot of people are like, oh, how are, they're going to have all these first round picks or whatever. But what the real thing that sets them up for, right, is, hey, if this team is ready to go, they have the best trade offer for whoever they decide they want to go get of anybody in the league.
No doubt. And I think they got so many rotational pieces now. I don't know who you would get off if you want to get off of anybody. I guess, what pieces they have when it comes time to trade. I don't know that they'll do the trade this year. It might happen next summer or the following year. I think Sam Presti knows that window is probably closing in, but it depends on who's in their rotation. Because think about the guys that, like who would you envision when they become a contender, like being on that team still? Like, you got Shai, you got Josh Giddey, Chet Holmgren, Lou Dort, J-Dub. I think one of those guys is probably excluded or included in the deal, rather, right? Like,
right.
You probably keep all of them, even if you can afford to pay all of them. So I'm thinking maybe, Giddey's probably out of there, or, Lou Dort is probably out of there. I don't know, whatever Presti's able to pull off. So it'll. I think that's the challenge ultimately down the line is, who you decide to part with, and obviously I don't think in nowhere, shape, or form I don't think it would be Chet, but now the minutes matter in terms of they have to see what the new look Thunder look like, because even though they're only factoring in Chet moving forward in terms of the way the basketball looks from last year to this year, that's a huge difference, man. And you have to see who them now and what lines work best. And I think that'll end up producing the vision and saying, okay, like Presti will see then, like, okay, this is who has to go, and they'll have the best package in the league for sure.
Hey, when you envision a trade, this is purely hypothetical, but is it like you go after KD and bring him back, like a guy of that age, or do you go after somebody younger that's currently a star in the league?
No, I couldn't do it, KD. If it was me, I would think that was crazy. So then not only would the package probably, I think Presti is too smart to take whatever asking price Phoenix would have for KD, because I think whoever has KD in their possession, even when he's 35, 36, is going to probably be asking for a package similar to what Morey is asking for Harden. It would be kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
He's obviously a more pluggable fit anywhere right now to me. But yeah, like I think you go younger. I think you go somebody who is 30 or younger, probably not over 30. You can catch somebody somebody who really can change things around. I think if they want to be a championship team, is Shea, as good as Shea is, first team All NBA, is he first option on a championship team right now? Will he make that leap to become the guy to be like, okay, I could be the best player on a championship team? Or do they have to find somebody better than him? And if that's the case, I'd say there aren't even 15 players better than him right now. So
it's going to be hard.
How many of them are young enough to where you feel comfortable trading and building with them in the long run?
Joel, before we let you go here, I want to switch gears and talk about the team that you still technically cover, the Creighton Blue Jays. They were ranked number 8 in the preseason AP poll. I guess just your reaction to that seemed about right to you. I know some people, myself included, think that there's a chance they could be even a little better than last year. I don't know if that means they go to a Final Four, but I think during the regular season, at least, they could be consistently a little bit better. What were your thoughts about where they were ranked and where you think this team can be this year?
Yeah, I thought the ranking was fine. I pretty much expected that. I think that's been kind of the consensus all summer. Like, I think whether you're higher on them, lower on them, I think the fact that the staff proved how far they could get last year and that they retained much of their core, at least the pieces that mattered most. Not to say that R2 and Columbus didn't matter, but obviously I think the big three, their top 3 options are what they probably should have worked to retain the most, and they did. The projections have shown that all summer, right? Like we like I said, whether you're high or low on them, I don't think people have thought of them as worse than the top 15 team in the country. Like at the very worst, even if you're like trading stuff overrated, you're probably not putting you're probably not lower than 15, right? So 8 was to be expected, man. Like, do I think this team? Like, I don't know if I'm as high on this team as I was last year's team at this time, right? Like, I think between the collective buzz and what the starting lineup looked like I think going into the season, I was more. But I will say, I'm not mad at people for being bullish on this year's team and where they can go. And they're a good team, man. They're really damn good. And I'm higher on Atlas this time around than I was when he first got here. So
that is our friend Joel Lorenzi. Joel, we really appreciate all the time you've given us. Kind of as your time here in Omaha is coming to an end. Best of luck down in Oklahoma City, and legitimately congratulations on kind of being able to follow your dream and cover an NBA team.
Thanks, Joel.
I appreciate it. Much love, guys.
See you, man.
That's Joel Lorenzi of the Omaha World Herald, soon to be of the Oklahoman. Avery Howard of Hurrdat Sports will join us next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
I don't think so. And, if that starts to creep into my mind, I need to work on getting that out because I want to keep preparing the same way I have been the last couple weeks. I want to prepare just like I have been the last 2-3 years. Like I want my shot. I want my opportunity. So if I get lackadaisical on a Tuesday because I feel like I need to protect myself for Saturday, I think I'm doing a really big disservice to my team.
We are wrapping up the show here on a Wednesday on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Before we get to our friend Avarie Howard, I want to tell you about our friends over at Alumni Hall. Alumni Hall is the go-to place for Husker fans to get all of their gear. Anything you want from gear to accessories or gifts or tailgating needs, Alumni Hall has you covered. Of course, you can earn cash back with their Hall Pass rewards. 2 great locations in Lincoln, P Street, downtown, and South Point Pavilion, or anytime at alumnihall.com. Alumni Hall, where Husker fans shop. Now, we're joined on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline by our friend Avarie Howard of Hurrdat Sports. Avarie, how are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you guys?
What up, AH?
Doing great. I've been asking everybody this week what they have been doing with their bye week, but I know what you were doing. You were out of UNO hockey.
No, she was watching the GBR Rewind series.
Well, that too. How was the opening weekend for Omaha hockey?
It was good. It was really exciting and fun to be back. It was a good weekend. Obviously, Omaha goes 2-0, which was great. But yeah, it was fun. I think Andrew can share the sentiment, but those games are pretty enjoyable for us, and we get to have a good time. So yeah, it was fun. I'm happy we're back.
Yeah, that MC over there is pretty dang good at his job.
I've heard he's kind of annoying. I don't know.
Oh, really? Good. Avery, I want to touch on the other point that I kind of joked about, but kind of not, that you did during your bye week, but talk about the GBR Rewind series. What have been the highlights for you? Because I know you went nuts over the first one that they were like what was the first series even called? I can't even remember. A look in.
Yeah.
Look in.
Yeah,
Well,
and
yeah, go ahead.
no. So I was just gonna say, like, I know this was right up your alley.
Yeah, I'm like a huge Netflix sports documentary girl through and through. I will watch them all, and so this is giving me such like Last Chance U QB1 vibes a little bit, but just like Nebraska version. And I love the editing style. Everything behind the scenes of it like is fascinating to me. But to absolutely see what's happening inside this program when it feels like we've heard so many good things despite maybe all the results, it feels like we're getting a true look at like, this is exactly what we've heard, or this is exactly what we've like heard about, or this is like in a dynamic we've heard. And just, I think the biggest thing is like this team is having so much fun behind closed doors. Like we see it to a certain extent on the field, and you can tell there's a different sense of camaraderie, but to watch them like in a locker room after a game or just at any time, like they just seem to have like a close, tight-knit chemistry that we've heard about, but like to truly see it and to see it on like an authentic level has definitely been my favorite part.
Yeah, Avery, we heard Marcus Satterfield yesterday talk about how it's just such an enjoyable group to be around just because of the way they respond to not just coaching, but to each other. We've seen it a lot with the kind of dynamic between Jeff Sims and Heinrich Harburg. I know you've been on obviously teams at the college level and kind of throughout your whole life. I think people assume that it's supposed to be like that, but a lot of times it's not, right? Like it's more unusual than we give it credit for.
I would agree with that. I think a lot of coaches want to achieve that, but I don't know if many are achieving it at such a level that Coach Rule is right now. I mean, and obviously we're kind of biased because we're only really getting this, side of things, and we haven't been thrown into other programs kind of like this. But from what it sounds like, even from coaches that have experienced other places, like a bye week has never been like this for Marcus Satterfield, or just he's like Tony White is like, I've never seen a coach connect eye to eye with such players. Like, just I think it's a great point you make that I think a lot of people like want to assume that you're around each other that much, and that's what team chemistry should be like, and that's how the coaches do operate off the field. But it takes a lot of extra time and effort away from film and practice to kind of put in that extra inch, and I think they do it in a really just a really effective way. I think Coach Rule's always said it, like, I try to meet them where they are, and so I think it's clearly paid off. And I think I've said this, I feel like, a few times, that over time, like, when you heal the inside, I think the outside will start to be noticeable.
Avery, I know that. Well, no, I'm going to save this question. I'm going to go to this one instead. Like everyone knows what I'm about to do. We did some accolades earlier on in the show for college football, and I kind of want to turn it the direction of Nebraska now. As you know, we're halfway through the season, right? And so I'm curious to you, if you were handing out a superlative for MVP of the first half, who or what group would receive that accolade?
On Nebraska, like personally?
Yeah, on Nebraska.
Oh man. Okay. Well, it's gonna be defense. Definitely the defensive group. My gut, like my instinct, immediately wants to go to Luke Reimer. And I think because you say superlative, I think that's probably why. I think his on-field play has been really impressive. And I told Ravi this earlier. I think Coach Rule and his staff have a really cool connection with these players that they're able to bring the most out of them, where Luke Reimer has always been a name we've known. It's always been a name that we hear as fans, as media on this team. But it just feels like this past year he's taken a huge leap in leadership. And also just like Coach Rule doesn't really talk about many players like he does Luke Reimer. And I think what he said this week also brings up the top of my mind, where he's like, Luke is the voice. Like, he isn't a voice, like, he is the voice. Like, he lets me know that, hey, when he was out, like, the guys already got their message for the day. They already know what's going on. So I think in terms of superlative, the group is defense, and then I think just because who Luke Reimer's really like evolved to be this season, I think he's the guy for me so far.
Avery, could I make an argument and somewhat convince you that the answer should be Heinrich Haarberg because of how yeah, because I mean you've seen Nebraska football for a really long time. Like usually when the backup quarterback comes in, the season's over, right? Like of late, right? It's been a disaster. So to have a guy like Heinrich Haarberg is, I mean, of huge value to the team.
I would agree with you. I think there's definitely, when you asked that question, my mind went to a few people, and he was on that list as well. But yeah, I can agree with that. That's a very valid point.
Wanted to ask you about, we were talking about the GBR rewind, or GBR ewind, I suppose is how it's actually spelled, with the, some of the footage we saw. But I mean, just as a former athlete, how do you feel when you see some of those pregame speeches that Matt Rule gives? Because I mean, I'm a long way past my playing days, but there's still part of me that's like, let's go hit somebody. And if we die, we die. Let's go.
No, I totally agree with you. The first time I saw them, I was like, well, at first I was kind of surprised they were going to be in there because at the beginning of the year, Coach Rule was like, we usually won't show anything from inside the locker room. Like, we just want to go play loud. But I don't think he's saying anything that's like obviously controversial. And like, holy cow, is he like a preacher's son, right? Like,
oh yeah.
the way he like fluctuates and like goes really aggressive and then kind of calms down. It's like, holy cow, like I'm engaged. Like I'm here. I'm locked in. But no, I love it. And I think like to see all of it and just see like how the guys react to it, like you can just tell there's a different kind of bond with him and the players. Like he says things and the players are responding. Like they're having a good time. Like there's a mix of like respect, but also like a friendship, it feels like. And also I didn't get to mention this earlier, but I feel like the really cool piece, and I don't know if you guys have already spoken about this today, I think you have, but Coach Sat talks about how great of a teammate and leader Jeff has been. Like he's seen it visually in these videos. Like visually, he's having a good time. He's still giving pregame speeches or postgame speeches. Like he was the first guy to speak up after the Colorado game. Like just little things like that. I think I also enjoy getting a little glimpse of, and rightfully so. Like none of us actually need to see this. Like right, like this could all stay to them.
Yeah.
So I think to have that insight and like to truly have evidence of everything that we're hearing on a week-to-week basis is pretty cool.
I want to kind of change gears here, Avery, just quickly before we let you go and talk about the impact of women's sports after the world record-setting volleyball match in Memorial Stadium and the trickle-down effect that it has sparked across the nation. Do you think women's sports was in need of events like the volleyball day and what took place at Kinnick this past weekend to showcase the popularity for the growth purposes? Or do you think that popularity was already there and people across the country just needed a reminder?
I kind of think you're second a little bit. Like I think I don't think we needed it, but I think it was there before, but I think it just proves on a grander scale like what's already living. I mean obviously it's hard to see how much support there is for other sporting programs that aren't Iowa basketball or Nebraska volleyball. Everyone knows the support's there, right? But to see how far it can go outside the parameters physically of a Bob Devaney or, where Iowa plays their women's basketball games. Like, I think there is a tremendous uptick in women's sports, but I do definitely think that, Nebraska doing what they did, it all of a sudden challenges a lot of people, right? Like, wow, like we actually have a great fan base, but what happens if we kind of like open the floodgates and don't limit it just to the physical barriers that we play in, and we can really prove to everyone just what that looks like. So I wouldn't say we needed it as women's sports, but I'm not going to say it didn't obviously catapult into a different dimension that it seems to be. Like, I put the clip up of Coach Cook yesterday, and he was like, at Michigan State, everywhere they're playing right now, even across the state of Nebraska, the attendance is kind of off the charts, which is obviously exciting to see.
Avery Howard of Hurrdat Sports.
Killer work.
Avery, great job as always, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks, Avery.
Have a good trip to Chicago.
She's zipping up the bag right now.
Zipping up the luggage. She's
definitely just zipped up her suitcase.
Hurrdat Sports Radio, Andrew Rogers. I'm Ravi Lulla. That's all for today. We'll be back tomorrow.